In the shadows of the Cold War era, a clandestine program emerged from the depths of the Central Intelligence Agency, known as MK-Ultra. This was not just a random project. It was a sweeping initiative that aimed to explore the capabilities of mind control and psychological manipulation. The program began in the early 1950s, at a time when the United States was increasingly anxious about the prospect of communist influence and the potential for psychological warfare. MK-Ultra was initiated under the leadership of the CIA, which sought to gain an edge over adversaries. They were particularly interested in how drugs, hypnosis, and other psychological techniques could be employed to influence individuals and control their actions. The program encompassed a variety of studies, many of which involved unethical human experimentation without the consent of the subjects. This lack of consent raised serious moral questions that resonate even today. One of the core components of MK-Ultra involved the administration of various substances, including LSD, to unwitting participants. This psychedelic drug was believed to have immense potential for altering perception, memory, and cognitive function. The CIA's researchers were curious about how these substances could potentially be utilized to brainwash individuals or extract information. Some individuals were taken from hospitals or mental institutions, while others simply found themselves involved in experiments unbeknownst to them. The experiments varied widely, from the use of drugs to torture techniques designed to break down a person's mental defenses. The CIA even explored the effects of sensory deprivation, where subjects were confined in dark isolation chambers to see how they would respond to extended periods without stimulation. This gave rise to questions about the limits of human psychology and resilience, as well as the potential dangers of pushing those limits. Another area of interest was hypnosis. The CIA believed that a hypnotized person could be more susceptible to suggestion and manipulation. They conducted tests to see if individuals could be programmed to perform specific actions under hypnosis, functioning almost like puppets in the hands of their manipulators. Some of the experiments involved attempting to implant false memories and alter a person's perceptions of reality. This tantalizing idea of a brain that could be rewired or controlled became a focal point, driving intrigue within the agency. As the years progressed, the ethical implications of these experiments came under scrutiny. Whistleblowers, former participants, and journalists began to expose the darker side of MK-Ultra. Reports surfaced detailing instances where subjects suffered severe psychological harm, physical ailments, and even death as a result of their involvements. The government had created an environment filled with secrecy, leading many to distrust the very institutions meant to protect them. In the mid-1970s, amidst growing public concern regarding government overreach and secrecy, the U.S. Congress held hearings to investigate the CIA's activities, including MK-Ultra. These hearings became an eye-opener for many, leading to a broader dialogue about ethics and experimentation and the responsibility of government agencies to uphold moral standards. The revelations prompted reforms and increased oversight into how government experiments involving human subjects would be conducted in the future, aiming to prevent such abuses from ever happening again. Yet, despite the shutdown of MK-Ultra in the early 1970s, its legacy endured. The concept of mind control, whether through drugs, psychological manipulation, or deception, remains a captivating topic in popular culture, literature, and film. Stories of conspiracy theories surrounding government plots continue to emerge, echoing the intrigue that MK-Ultra inspired. Much of the documentation related to MK-Ultra was destroyed in 1973, leaving gaps in our understanding of its full scope and impact. However, the fragments of evidence that survived paint a troubling picture of how desperate times can lead to desperate measures. The CIA's efforts to explore the human mind pushed moral boundaries and raised ethical concerns that challenge us to consider the limits of human experimentation. It serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of consent and oversight in all of our endeavors, particularly those that can alter the fabric of individual agency. The legacy of MK-Ultra also invites us to ponder the nature of free will, control, and the extent to which external forces can influence our thoughts and behaviors. It offers a lens through which we can examine our own susceptibility to suggestion and the fragility of the human psyche. As we continue to explore the intersection of psychology, neuroscience, and ethics in modern society, MK-Ultra stands as a historical monument of what can happen when curiosity crosses ethical lines. It challenges us to remain vigilant and aware of the implications of research and experimentation, not only in intelligence agencies but across all realms of human inquiry. The lessons learned from MK-Ultra are especially relevant today, as technology and psychological understanding have progressed, raising even more profound questions about the protection of individual autonomy in an age of information. Welcome to the story of the Aral Sea, a once magnificent body of water located between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan in Central Asia. Once hailed as the fourth largest lake in the world, the Aral Sea's size was nothing short of majestic. It teemed with fish and supported diverse ecosystems, while its shores provided livelihoods for many communities. Yet this grandeur has all but vanished, leaving behind a stark reminder of how human intervention can alter the natural world. To understand the full impact of the changes to the Aral Sea, we must journey back to the 1960s. The Soviet Union devised a grand plan to transform the region, elevating agricultural production to unprecedented levels. They diverted rivers that fed the Aral Sea, primarily the Amu Darya and the Sir Darya, for irrigation purposes. The idea was to cultivate vast cotton fields in an area that was arid and inhospitable. The agricultural ambitions of the time were grand, but the consequences were dire. As the rivers were diverted, the Aral Sea began to shrink. In just a few short decades, the once vibrant body of water started to dry up. Imagine standing on the banks of a beautiful lake one moment, only to find that the water has receded far into the distance, leaving behind a landscape of cracked earth and abandoned fishing boats. This phenomenon was not just about the loss of water. It was an ecological disaster that affected a myriad of life forms. The reduction of the Aral Sea had profound repercussions on local climates. The water that had once played a crucial role in regulating temperatures was gone, leading to more extreme conditions in the surrounding areas. Winters became colder and summers blisteringly hot. Communities nearby found themselves grappling with changes that threatened their ways of life and the delicate balance of nature. Wildlife that depended on the Aral Sea faced dire challenges as their habitats vanished. Local fish populations dwindled, impacting both the ecosystem and the fishing industry. Fishermen who once thrived in these bountiful waters watched their livelihoods dissipate. Many turned to alternative sources of income, often with little success. The region transformed from a flourishing marine environment to a dry desert, altering everything in its wake. But the effects didn't stop at just agriculture and wildlife. The dust from the exposed lakebed began to carry detrimental pollutants into the air. Pesticides and chemicals used in cotton farming led to health issues among the local populations. Regions that were once rich in resources transitioned to communities faced with conflict and unrest over reduced water availability and diminishing economic opportunities. Today, the remnants of the Aral Sea serve as a haunting reminder of environmental mismanagement. Efforts to rejuvenate parts of the sea have been made. However, the legacy of the past is deeply ingrained. The shrinking of the Aral Sea stands not only as an ecological disaster, but also as a stark lesson in the importance of sustainable resource management. In certain areas, particularly in Kazakhstan's northern section, restoration projects have shown some success. Water levels have risen slightly, and some fish species are making a tentative return. These projects illustrate the resilience of nature and the potential for recovery when we act to correct past mistakes. The Aral Sea Disaster teaches us about the complex interplay between human activity and the environment. It reminds us of our responsibility to make choices that foster a healthy planet, balancing our needs with those of the ecosystems around us. As we look forward, it serves as a powerful example of what can occur if we prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability. Consider this. What would have happened if the rivers had been preserved instead of diverted? Would the communities surrounding the Aral Sea still thrive today? Would the wildlife still populate the region? The decline of the Aral Sea underscores the fragility of ecosystems and the urgent need for mindful stewardship of our planet's resources. The story of the Aral Sea is far from over. As we continue to reflect on this ecological tragedy, it invites us to ask critical questions about our role in preserving the natural world. Every action we take has consequences that ripple through the environment and affect lives far and wide. We hold the power to make choices that positively impact our planet for generations to come. In this nuanced tale of human ambition versus nature's limits, we find a window into the future. The echoes of the Aral Sea's history challenge us to strive for balance, ensuring that while we pursue progress, we continue to empower the ecosystems that nurture us. As we navigate the complexities of our environment, let us carry with us the lessons learned from the Aral Sea, championing a path of environmental respect and sustainability. In the early years of the Cold War, the United States faced a looming threat from nuclear weapons and a desire to understand their effects on human health. Among the many initiatives that emerged during this time was a controversial program known as Project Sunshine. This program, established in the 1950s, aimed to gather critical information about radioactive fallout resulting from nuclear testing, a pressing concern for both the government and the public. At the heart of Project Sunshine was an unsettling approach to research that involved the analysis of human tissue samples. Scientists aimed to determine how much radioactive material was entering the human body from nuclear tests. The goal was clear: to gauge the long-term effects of radiation exposure and to ensure the safety of the population. However, the methods used to achieve this goal raised profound ethical questions. To obtain the tissue samples, researchers relied on a network of funeral homes and hospitals across the country. They requested remains of individuals who had recently passed away, particularly focusing on children and infants. The allure of understanding the impacts of nuclear fallout often overshadowed the moral responsibility of obtaining those samples ethically and with proper consent. Many of the families affected had no idea that their loved ones' remains were being used in this way. This lack of consent has since been a significant point of contention surrounding the project. The human bodies analyzed primarily included those of children, which sparked outrage and condemnation when the details surfaced. The belief was that younger individuals would have more significant vulnerabilities to radiation, and thus, researchers sought to comprehend the dangers that may lurk in the atmosphere as a result of nuclear testing. This focus on children, unfortunately, was not paired with their parents' knowledge, leading to a profound breach of trust. As the project progressed, researchers were able to connect their findings to the fallout patterns from above-ground nuclear tests. When bombs were detonated, radioactive particles were released into the atmosphere, eventually making their way to the ground through precipitation and settling into the environment. This fallout contained isotopes such as strontium-90, known to pose serious health risks, including cancer, when ingested. Project Sunshine aimed to uncloak the extent to which citizens were exposed to these dangers through everyday life. The public's awareness of nuclear testing grew as the government conducted regular tests, leading to fears that permeated society. The threat of radiation hung heavy over families, creating a cascade of anxiety and uncertainty regarding the safety of their children. While Project Sunshine aimed to alleviate these concerns through research, the ethically questionable methods employed began to overshadow its scientific contributions. Scientists conducting the project faced their own dilemmas. They were driven to uncover groundbreaking data, yet their methods increasingly came under scrutiny. Ethicists and members of the public soon began questioning the justification of using human tissue in research without necessary consents. This invasive approach to science paved the way for new conversations around the ethics of medical research and the rights of individuals to control how their bodies and those of their loved ones were used in the name of science. As more information about the project became public, it prompted a broader discourse on the conduct of research involving human subjects. Demands for regulations and oversight in scientific research grew louder. The scandal of Project Sunshine served as a catalyst for these conversations, leading to the establishment of stricter ethical guidelines surrounding research practices. It was imperative for the medical community to recognize the importance of informed consent and to prioritize transparency in their methodologies. The legacy of Project Sunshine remains complicated. It holds the duality of contributing to vital knowledge about the impacts of radiation while simultaneously highlighting the moral failings of its approach. The fallout from this initiative extended beyond scientific data. It caused lasting ripples through the medical, ethical, and societal landscapes of the time. Today, Project Sunshine often serves as a case study in discussions about the ethics of human research. It's a cautionary tale illustrating the complexities of balancing scientific advancement with moral responsibility. As society progresses, the lessons learned from the past are woven into the fabric of ethical standards in research, ensuring that respect for individuals are paramount in the pursuit of knowledge. The narrative of Project Sunshine continues to remind us of the importance of ethical considerations in scientific exploration. As we advance towards new frontiers in research, aligning with principles that uphold dignity, respect, and consent will be crucial to prevent any repetition of past transgressions. History serves as our guide in shaping a better future, fostering trust between researchers and the communities they seek to serve. In honoring those affected by Project Sunshine, we acknowledge the need for vigilance to protect individuals in the name of scientific inquiry. On April 26, 1986, one of the worst industrial accidents in history occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, located near the town of Pripyat in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. This catastrophic event unfolded during a late-night safety test. The aim was to determine how long cooling water would remain available in the core in the event of a power outage. However, a series of operational errors, compounded by the reactor's flawed design, led to an uncontrolled nuclear reaction. This resulted in 2 explosions, which ruptured the reactor core and released a vast amount of radioactive material into the atmosphere. The immediate aftermath of the disaster was marked by chaos and confusion. First responders, including firefighters and plant workers, rushed to contain the fire and prevent further damage. Many of these individuals were unaware of the true nature of the disaster and the risks they faced. Some were exposed to lethal doses of radiation. The Soviet government initially downplayed the severity of the incident, delaying the evacuation of nearby residents. It wasn't until 36 hours later that the city of Pripyat, home to approximately 49,000 people, was evacuated. In the days that followed, radioactive clouds spread across Europe, with particles detected as far away as Sweden and the United Kingdom. The incident prompted an international response, as countries began to realize the scale of the contamination. The Soviet Union tried to contain the fallout by constructing a sarcophagus around the destroyed reactor, but the radioactive material began to leak, causing further concern. It was later revealed that the core had been blasted apart, sending debris and radioactive matter high into the atmosphere. The long-term health impacts of the Chernobyl disaster have been profound. Thousands of people were exposed to high levels of radiation, leading to an increase in thyroid cancer, especially among children. The United Nations and various health organizations estimate that thousands more cases of cancer and other illnesses may be linked to the disaster over the years. Research has shown that the psychological effects of the disaster are also significant, with many former residents suffering from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The landscape around Chernobyl transformed dramatically, turning from a bustling town into a ghostly reminder of the event. The Chernobyl exclusion zone was established, covering an area of about 2,600 square kilometers. This zone remains mostly uninhabited today and serves as a chilling monument to the disaster, with abandoned buildings and decaying structures overcome by nature. Interestingly, the area has become an unlikely sanctuary for wildlife. Animals that thrive in the absence of human habitation have flourished, including wolves, deer, and various bird species. Nature has a way of reclaiming its space despite the lingering radiation. Chernobyl also reshaped nuclear policy and safety protocols around the world. Many countries re-evaluated their nuclear power programs in the wake of the disaster. Regulators began instituting stricter safety standards and emergency response protocols. The Chernobyl disaster highlighted the potential risks associated with nuclear power and the need for transparency, preparedness, and international cooperation in dealing with nuclear energy. The story of Chernobyl did not end with the immediate aftermath. It continues to resonate through documentaries, films, and even video games, reflecting the intrigue and horror of that fateful night. The HBO miniseries Chernobyl received critical acclaim for its detailed and emotional portrayal of the disaster and its aftermath. This renewed interest has led to greater awareness of nuclear safety and preparedness. Scientific research is still ongoing to understand the full impact of the disaster. Studies are being conducted to evaluate the long-term effects of radiation exposure on health, agriculture, and the environment. These studies are vital for improving safety protocols and ensuring that similar disasters do not occur in the future. In sum, the Chernobyl disaster serves as a cautionary tale about the complexities and potential dangers of nuclear energy. It emphasizes the importance of vigilance in managing technological innovations, particularly those with potentially catastrophic consequences. While the area surrounding Chernobyl has become a fascinating, albeit eerie site for exploration and study, the stories of those affected by the disaster remind us of the human cost behind such tragedies. As we learn from the past, we carry the responsibility to ensure that history does not repeat itself. This event will always be a pivotal moment in discussions about energy, safety, and humanity's ongoing relationship with technology. It stands as a testament to resilience, healing, and the indomitable spirit of both people and nature to overcome and adapt to adverse conditions. In 1959, a mysterious tragedy unfolded in the cold, rugged landscape of the Ural Mountains in Russia. A group of 9 experienced hikers set out on an expedition, only to meet a fate that has puzzled and captivated people for decades. This event has become known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident, named after the group's leader, Igor Dyatlov. The hikers were a mix of university students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, eager to showcase their skills and tackle the challenges of the mountain terrain. As they began their journey, they were well prepared, armed with the knowledge of survival techniques in harsh conditions, making their sudden disappearance all the more bewildering. They followed a route that later became known as the Dyatlov Pass, a name that would forever be linked with tragedy. On the night of February 1st, they set up camp on the slopes of a mountain. The weather was brutal, with temperatures plunging well below freezing. It did not take long for the conditions to take a turn for the worse, forcing the group to make crucial decisions. They had planned to descend to a nearby valley the next day, but as the evening fell, they decided to take shelter in their tent, situated on a slope. What happened next is a sequence of events steeped in mystery. When the hikers failed to send a telegram from their next stop, search parties were dispatched to find them. Days later, the tent was discovered, abandoned, and remarkably cut open from the inside. This detail immediately raises questions. Why would they abandon a perfectly good shelter in such harsh weather? An initial search yielded no signs of the missing hikers, until eventually they were found scattered in the surrounding area, and the circumstances of their deaths would become a focal point of speculation and intrigue. The bodies were discovered at different distances from the tent, some partially frozen in the snow. As investigators examined the remains, they uncovered a series of unsettling details. Some of the hikers had died from hypothermia, a plausible outcome given the extreme cold. However, the condition of some bodies raised eyebrows. One of the hikers, Lyudmila Dubinina, was found with severe internal injuries, comparable to those produced in a car accident. More remarkably, she was missing her tongue and eyes, which added layers of mystery to an already perplexing case. Speculations ran rampant. Was there an animal attack, or something far more elusive at play? As for the others, some exhibited signs of radiation exposure. In the context of the Cold War, this led to theories involving military tests or secret government experiments. Others suggested that the group had encountered something supernatural, attributed to local legends of the Mansi people who inhabit the region. The combination of strange injuries, the unsettling abandon of the tent, and the unexplained phenomena has fed speculation for years. In the face of such curious details, various theories emerged, ranging from plausible to outright bizarre. Some proposed an avalanche buried the camp, driving the hikers into a panic, prompting them to flee into the night stripped of their gear. Others suggest that they may have been involved in an encounter with a UFO, fueled by reports of lights in the sky around the same time. As investigators sought to piece together the mystery, the official Soviet authorities ultimately attributed the deaths to a compelling force of nature, labeling the cause as a compelling natural force. However, this explanation did little to quell the questions that arose from the peculiar circumstances surrounding the hikers' deaths. The incident remained under public scrutiny for decades, capturing the interest of amateur sleuths, documentarians, and those with a penchant for the occult. The intrigue surrounding the Dyatlov Pass incident has led to numerous books, movies, and television series enshrining the hikers in culture. People from all walks of life continue to delve into the mystery, seeking answers to questions that remain unresolved. To this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident invokes both horror and fascination, a tragic reminder of human vulnerability in the face of nature's unpredictability. The allure of unexplained events has a special way of captivating the imagination, revealing how little we understand about certain realms of the human experience and the elements that surround us. As the seasons change in the Ural Mountains, so too do the stories that echo through the winds. The haunting resemblance of the lost expedition lingers in the memory of those drawn to the thrill of adventure. The resolved mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to inspire exploration, not just of the mountains themselves, but of the various layers of human nature, our fears of the unknown, and the ancient ties we share with the wilderness. In essence, the Dyatlov Pass incident is not just about those 9 lost souls. It's a testament to the balance between human courage and the unpredictable forces of the wild. It stands as a narrative woven into the fabric of history, leaving us puzzled and enchanted by the legacy of those who dared to explore the adventurous paths of our world, forever echoing the unanswered questions that link us to the past. Unit 731. a covert biological and chemical warfare research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army, conducted inhumane experiments on thousands of people during World War II. Established in 1935, this unit operated primarily in Manchukuo, a puppet state established by Japan in Manchuria. Though shrouded in secrecy at the time, the activities that unfolded within Unit 731 are now recognized as one of history's most horrific episodes of human rights violations. The unit was led by Major General Shiro Ishii, a physician with a twisted vision of militarizing science. His ambition drove him to explore the limits of medical knowledge through grotesque and barbaric methods. The experiments targeted not only Chinese civilians, but also prisoners of war, including Russians and even some Japanese nationals, subjecting them to unimaginable cruelty. It is estimated that around 3,000 individuals were directly involved in these experiments, which were often morally justified as necessary for the advancement of Japan's military capabilities. The horrors inflicted within the walls of Unit 731 included vivisection, surgical procedures performed on living humans without anesthesia. Victims were often dissected to study the effects of diseases and injuries in real time. For example, researchers would infect individuals with pathogens like plague or anthrax, all while observing how their bodies reacted under extreme conditions. This method was not merely about documenting disease progression. It allowed the researchers to assess the potential effectiveness of various biological weapons. Additionally, Unit 731 conducted tests involving extreme temperature variations. Subjects were subjected to freezing conditions to study frostbite, and some were even placed in ice baths until they nearly succumbed to hypothermia. The goal was to create better protective clothing for Japanese soldiers in cold climates, but the cost was unbearable human suffering. Human experimentation at Unit 731 wasn't limited to bacterial and viral diseases. It also involved the use of various poisons and chemicals. The unit explored methods of dispersing lethal substances in warfare, creating aerosolized versions of deadly agents. Thousands were subjected to chemical weapons testing this way, which is particularly terrifying given Japan's willingness to employ such tactics against civilian populations. Moreover, the institution of Unit 731 created a breeding ground for unethical medical research. Their so-called scientific experiments were devoid of morality, treating human lives as mere data points. Reports have emerged of horrific instances where test subjects were paired together to witness the effects of grenade explosions or chemical attacks. These trials provided data on how different bodies responded to trauma, ultimately aiming to enhance battlefield efficiency. The secretive nature of Unit 731 ensured that many of its atrocities went unnoticed during the war. While the Western forces were caught in the trenches of Europe, the focus on the Pacific War often neglected the depth of human rights abuses transpiring in Asia. When the war concluded, many of those involved in the operations of Unit 731 were shielded from prosecution through deals negotiated by the U.S. government, which sought the knowledge derived from these inhumane experiments regarding biological warfare. Today, testimonies from survivors and researchers continue to uncover the dark past of Unit 731. Some of these individuals, who endured immeasurable suffering, share their stories in hopes of educating the world about the depths of cruelty mankind can display. They remind us that science done without ethical considerations can lead to monstrous outcomes, and they advocate for moral integrity in all fields of research. As we reflect on this dark chapter in history, it is essential to remember the lessons learned. Our understanding of human rights and medical ethics has significantly evolved since World War II, yet the potential for abuse remains a pressing issue. It is our responsibility to ensure that history does not repeat itself, advocating for compassion and humanity in all areas of life. We must honor the memory of those who suffered under the hands of Unit 731 and speak out against inhumane practices wherever they may occur. This part of our history serves as a sobering reminder that the pursuit of knowledge should never come at the price of humanity. Through sharing these stories and educating future generations, we can commit ourselves to a future defined by compassion, ethics, and respect for all human life. By learning from the past, we can build a better, more humane world for those who come after us. In the early 20th century, a remarkable yet tragic story unfolded that would change perceptions about health, safety, and workers' rights forever. It began in the 1920s, in the industrial towns of the United States, where a group of young women found themselves at the center of a terrible dilemma. These women, known as the Radium Girls, were employed in factories where they painted watch dials with a glowing substance made from radium. Although the work seemed glamorous and innovative, it concealed a dark reality. Radium was discovered in 1898 by Marie Curie and Pierre Curie, and it quickly captured the public's imagination for its luminescent properties. This glowing element symbolized the future, a promise of new technology and excitement. Radium was marketed as a miracle substance, and the idea of using it in products led many to believe it was safe, even beneficial. Watch manufacturers promoted radium paint as a way to provide luminous dials that were easily readable in darkness, appealing greatly to consumers and making the watches highly popular. The girls who worked in these factories were mostly young, vibrant women, often in their late teens or early 20s. They were eager to earn a living and support their families, and the jobs were seen as excellent opportunities at the time. They enjoyed good pay, especially for women, and the work atmosphere was lively and social. Many of them worked at factories like the United States Radium Corporation in New Jersey, where they would spend long hours painting watch faces with meticulous care. To achieve the fine detail required, they were instructed to use a technique known as lip pointing, which involved putting the brush into their mouths to achieve a fine tip. This practice was surprisingly common and did not raise any immediate red flags, even as these women unknowingly ingested radium with every brushstroke. As they painted, they laughed and chatted, the cheerful camaraderie masking a growing tragedy that would soon unfold. Over time, the toll of working with radium began to emerge. Many of the women started showing strange symptoms that baffled doctors and were often dismissed as something trivial. They experienced severe pain, fatigue, and unexpected illnesses that seemed unrelated to their work. Some began to suffer from deterioration of their jawbones, a painful condition now known as radium jaw. Others reported severe anemia and were plagued by mysterious illnesses that no one could explain. Eventually, some of the women took it upon themselves to investigate the cause of their suffering. They began to link their health issues to their work with radium, leading them to confront the company that had employed them. The United States Radium Corporation, however, maintained that radium was safe and refused to take responsibility for the women's deteriorating health. This denial catalyzed the women's fight for justice. They organized, shared their stories, and sought legal redress. The case of the Radium Girls drew national attention, leading to a protracted legal battle that highlighted the workers' plight. As their conditions became more dire, the media began to cover their struggle, transforming these women into symbols of the fight for labor rights and health safety. Their legal battles revealed not only the dangers of radium, but also the broader disregard for the health and safety of workers in industrial settings. The outcome of their fight was landmark. While many faced severe consequences, including late-stage illnesses and death, their efforts eventually led to important changes in workplace safety laws. The public became more aware of the importance of protecting workers, and regulations began to take shape regarding occupational health. The legacy of the Radium Girls is profound. Their story symbolizes the importance of worker safety in industries across the globe. They taught society that no job is worth the sacrifice of one's health, and that companies must be held accountable for the well-being of their employees. Furthermore, their courage and perseverance served as catalysts for change, inspiring future generations to advocate for their rights and strive for better working conditions. Today, the story of the Radium Girls is a vital chapter in the history of labor rights and health advocacy. Documentaries, books, and even plays have been created to honor their memory, ensuring that their sacrifices are not forgotten. Their fight serves as a reminder of the importance of questioning authority, demanding justice, and fostering a culture of safety in workplaces everywhere. So the narrative of the Radium Girls continues to resonate, impacting how industries operate today and inspiring movements towards safer work environments. It reflects a transformative era where the rights of workers took center stage and acknowledges a collective responsibility to protect those who contribute to our society. Their legacy teaches us lessons about diligence, care, and the enduring strength found in standing together against injustice. The Manchurian Candidate is a gripping narrative that blends the realms of political intrigue and psychological manipulation. Originally penned by Richard Condon in 1959, the story unfolds during the height of the Cold War, a period steeped in tension and widespread anxiety about the ambitions of international communism. This atmosphere of paranoia forms the backdrop for a tale that explores the dark possibilities inherent in mind control and brainwashing. The central character, Raymond Shaw, is a highly decorated American soldier who returns from the Korean War, where he is subjected to a mysterious and sinister form of brainwashing. He becomes an unwitting pawn in a grand political conspiracy, manipulated by a shadowy organization intent on advancing their own agenda. The author cleverly uses Shaw's plight to delve into deeper themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the frailty of the human mind when confronted with the forces of power and control. At its core, the Manchurian Candidate raises unsettling questions about free will. Can a person's mind be altered to the point where their fundamental beliefs and desires are overwritten? Throughout the novel and its cinematic adaptations, this concept is presented with chilling clarity. It taps into the fears of the time, suggesting that the enemy could infiltrate one's own mind, making a host of horrors possible from a distance. The psychological ramifications of such manipulation resonate hauntingly with the audience. Interestingly, Condon's story also reflects the anxieties of the era related to totalitarian regimes, particularly the fear instilled by the Soviet Union. The depiction of brainwashing techniques draws on real-life accusations made during the Cold War period, where government programs aimed at psychological manipulation were rumored to exist. The very thought that one could be unwittingly molded into a tool for the enemy was a potent and, at times, all-consuming fear. It questioned not only national security, but the very essence of personal identity. In its exploration of manipulation, the narrative also examines the role of power in society. Characters in positions of authority use coercive methods to achieve their objectives, illustrating how easily the moral compass may shift when ambition and fear come into play. The man behind this nefarious scheme represents the archetypal villain, a figure whose methods strike at the heart of ethical behavior, making audiences question the costs of political gain. The novel gained even wider recognition with its film adaptation in 1962, directed by John Frankenheimer. The film stays true to the essence of Condon's work, while emphasizing the psychological tension and suspense that defines the narrative. Frank Sinatra, who plays Raymond Shaw, delivers a remarkable performance that brings a human touch to the character's suffering. The film's cinematography enhances the eerie atmosphere, with disorienting camera angles and stark lighting contributing to the sense of paranoia. The imagery found in both the book and film leaves a lasting impression. One of the most notable scenes is the quote dream sequence, where Shaw is compelled to witness the horrific manipulation he has undergone. This vivid representation shakes audiences and compels them to confront their own fears about autonomy and control. It becomes a representation of the powerlessness that lies at the heart of the manipulation, highlighting how easily one's mind can be turned against them. The Manchurian Candidate has had a significant cultural impact, with its themes echoing throughout various aspects of society beyond the Cold War era. Many subsequent films and television shows have drawn inspiration from its narrative of deep-state conspiracies and the concept of sleeper agents. The resonance of its themes remains relevant, especially as contemporary discussions around technology, surveillance, and mind control continue to unfold. Moreover, the discussions surrounding brainwashing have intriguingly evolved with advancements in psychology and neuroscience. The implications of being able to influence thoughts and behaviors through psychological techniques are far-reaching. From advertising to social media influence, the fundamental question prompted by the Manchurian Candidate, how much control do we truly have over our thoughts and actions, remains pertinent in today's fast-paced, interconnected world. In the years since its release, The Manchurian Candidate has become more than just a tale of espionage. It serves as a cautionary reflection on the dangers of unchecked power, both in politics and within the realms of human consciousness. The gripping narrative compels listeners and viewers to question the darker sides of ambition, the potential for betrayal, and the fragility of the mind itself in the midst of external influence. Condon's creation undoubtedly holds an esteemed place in literary and cinematic history, illustrating how narratives can encapsulate societal fears and reflect the complexities of the human experience. The Manchurian Candidate remains a profound commentary on paranoia, manipulation, and the eternal struggle between autonomy and control, cementing its status as a timeless story in the annals of storytelling. These resonating themes continue to capture the imagination and provoke critical reflection long after its original release, retaining its relevance in contemporary discourse about power dynamics, autonomy, and psychological influence. In ancient Rome, a civilization renowned for its advanced engineering and urban planning, one of the most significant innovations was the development of an extensive aqueduct system. These aqueducts, monumental in their design and construction, allowed fresh water to flow into the cities from distant sources. However, the materials used in this ambitious project would later reveal an unintentional flaw that might have contributed to the decline of the empire: lead. Lead was a common substance in Roman society, known for its malleability and resistance to corrosion. The Romans skillfully crafted lead pipes, known as fistulae, to transport water. This method was efficient and effective, providing citizens with access to clean water for drinking and bathing, enhancing public health and sanitation. The luxury of running water was a testament to the engineering prowess of Roman civilization and its commitment to urban living. While the aqueducts themselves were impressive feats, the use of lead pipes introduced unforeseen consequences. At the time, the dangers of lead exposure were not understood. The Romans didn't realize that when water flowed through lead pipes, it could leach small amounts of lead into the water supply. Consumers experienced the effects of this slow accumulation without immediate awareness. Lead poisoning, over time, can result in a range of alarming health issues. Symptoms might have included fatigue, headaches, and digestive problems. In severe cases, it could lead to more serious conditions, like neurological damage and cognitive decline. Unfortunately, many Romans likely attributed these ailments to other causes, rather than connecting them to the water they consumed daily. Moreover, lead poisoning can affect the reproductive system. Historical documents suggest that many upper-class Romans who had greater access to lead plumbing may have faced fertility challenges, possibly influencing population dynamics and affecting family structures. The elite, whose roles were pivotal in the political and social fabric of Roman society, may have found themselves unable to sustain their lineages, which could have implications for governance and stability. The most prominent figures in society could have been among the most affected by this insidious poison. Imagine a powerful senator or a celebrated general experiencing unexplained fatigue or mood swings, possibly impacting important decisions or leadership capabilities. This deterioration in mental acuity could lead to poor governance, misallocation of resources, or even the inability to respond adeptly to threats, both internal and external. In addition to impacting physical health, the widespread use of lead pipes had cultural and societal repercussions. Clean water was not just a means to an end, but a symbol of prestige and progress. As the health of the populace declined, the very infrastructure designed to uplift society might have instead become a factor contributing to an eventual decline, sowing seeds of doubt and hardship among citizens who had once enjoyed Rome's greatness. In turn, this could lead to a loss of public confidence in the government, as people sought explanations for their suffering. An empire's strength often lies in the trust between its leaders and its citizens. However, if that trust erodes due to health concerns linked to something as fundamental as drinking water, societal cohesion could fray under pressure. This phenomenon raises interesting questions about how technological advancements can sometimes remain blind to potential hazards that accompany them. While the Romans excelled at engineering, their inability to foresee the dangers of lead illustrates a critical irony. The same innovations designed to improve quality of life also had the potential to undermine it. Reflecting on this chapter of history is vital not only for understanding the Romans, but also for modern societies grappling with their own challenges. As today's cities continue to grow and develop, engineering marvels often accompany them. It serves as a reminder that while aiming for progress, careful consideration of materials and their impacts on health must remain paramount. The Romans taught us that even the most advanced societies can unknowingly sow the seeds of their own decline. Lead pipes flowed through the heart of their empire, nourishing it yet straining its existence. This historical narrative invites us to ponder how future generations can learn from the past, ensuring that in our pursuit of civilization, we do not overlook the foundational aspects that sustain human life. As we explore these intriguing details, we find a blend of technological advancement and human vulnerability. The story of lead in Roman water is one that emphasizes the importance of awareness in the face of progress, reminding us that what appears beneficial on the surface may conceal dangers lurking beneath. And so, as we continue to build and innovate, let us remember to tread carefully, ensuring that the legacies we leave behind are not marred by unintended consequences, but rather celebrated for their contributions to a thriving society. On November 28, 1953, the life of Frank Olson came to an abrupt and mysterious end, a case that has intrigued and puzzled historians, journalists, and conspiracy theorists for decades. Olson was a skilled scientist, known for his significant contributions to the American biological warfare program during the Cold War. He worked for the Army's Special Operations Division, where he focused on researching and developing various methods of chemical and biological warfare. Olson's work played a crucial role in the United States' efforts to gain an upper hand during a time of intense global tensions and competition with the Soviet Union. His studies involved exploring ways to break down the defensive capabilities of enemies, enhancing the arsenal of tools available to the military. As a talented researcher, Olson was deeply rooted in the scientific community, respected by his peers, and viewed as an asset to the national defense strategy. However, Olson's life took a dramatic turn in the weeks leading up to his death. He was unwittingly drawn into a series of secretive government projects that included experimentation with psychedelic drugs, notably LSD. In a bid to explore the potential of mind control and psychological manipulation, the CIA had begun testing these substances on unsuspecting individuals. Olson's work in this area intertwined with his role in biological research, leaving him in a precarious position as ethical concerns began to emerge about the implications of such experiments. In late 1953, Olson attended a retreat with his colleagues where he was unknowingly dosed with LSD without his consent. This event is believed to have contributed to his deteriorating mental state in the following days. Friends and colleagues noticed a change. He appeared distressed, anxious, and deeply troubled. Olson began to question the morality of his work and the government programs in which he had been involved. His unease grew as he grappled with the potential consequences of his research. Just days after the retreat, on November 28th, Olson's life ended in a most peculiar manner. He plunged from the 10th floor of the Hotel Statler in New York City, a fall that officially was ruled a suicide. However, many have contended that the circumstances surrounding his death were highly suspicious. The timing, the context of his involvement in governmental projects, and his mental health raised questions about whether he was indeed taking his own life or if something far more sinister had occurred. Compounding the mystery surrounding his death was the subsequent response from government officials. Shortly after Olson's fall, his family received little to no definitive answers. Initially informed that he had taken his life due to an, quote, accident caused by an unstable mental state, the Olson family was only beginning to unravel the layers of secrecy behind his work and death. They later learned that Frank Olson had been a subject in unethical CIA experiments. In 1975, more than 2 decades after Olson's death, the Church Committee, a Senate investigation into abuses by the CIA, released documents confirming the agency's involvement in mind control experiments, including the use of LSD. This revelation prompted many, including Frank Olson's family, to seek justice and uncover the truth about what really happened that fateful night. The Olson family pursued a civil lawsuit against the federal government, leading to a substantial settlement without an admission of wrongdoing. The case continued to draw attention, capturing the public's imagination as it exemplified the complexities of the shadowy world of secret government programs. The chilling possibility that Olson might have been murdered to prevent him from revealing classified information about the nature of the tests and his research created a narrative filled with tension and intrigue. Years later, in 1994, a documentary titled Wormwood brought renewed focus to Olson's story, highlighting the bizarre and complex interplay between scientific inquiry, ethical boundaries, and governmental secrecy. Eyewitness accounts, expert analyses, and previously classified documents fleshed out the narrative, emphasizing how Olson's death had implications that reached far beyond a single tragic event. The legacy of Frank Olson continues to resonate in modern discussions about ethics in scientific research, particularly in regard to experimentation on human subjects. His story serves as a grim reminder of the potential consequences of government overreach and the sometimes blurred lines between scientific exploration and moral responsibility. For many, Olson's death symbolizes a tragic intersection of ambition, secrecy, and a stark reminder of the darker chapters of history related to national security. Ultimately, the mystery of Frank Olson's death is more than just an isolated incident. It encapsulates a broader story about the tension between individual ethics and collective security during one of America's most tumultuous periods. As we examine these complex narratives today, we are urged to reflect on lessons from the past and the significant ethical questions they raise about the relationship between power, science, and humanity. Olson's life and untimely end remind us not only about the dangers of unchecked authority, but also about the enduring quest for truth, accountability, and justice in the face of darkness. During World War II, an unsettling chapter unfolded within the horrific context of the Nazi regime, exposing the darker facets of human experimentation. The period saw various medical practices and tests that were not just unorthodox, but also morally reprehensible, primarily targeting vulnerable groups such as concentration camp prisoners, including Jews, Romani people, and others deemed undesirable by the Nazis. One of the most notorious figures associated with these inhumane activities was Dr. Josef Mengele, often referred to as the Angel of Death. He conducted gruesome experiments at Auschwitz, which included a range of procedures aimed at understanding human genetics and the effects of trauma. Mengele was particularly interested in twins, often subjecting them to extreme conditions to study the genetic similarities and differences. Twins were frequently put through various tests that led to immense suffering, including invasive surgeries without anesthesia, infections intentionally induced, and various torturous procedures aimed at assessing pain tolerance and physical responses. Another chilling aspect of these experiments involved the examination of the human body's limits under extreme conditions. Some Nazi doctors subjected prisoners to hypothermia tests, immersing them in icy waters to study the effects of low temperatures. These tests were brutal, as individuals were left to fight for survival without adequate clothing or warmth, ultimately leading to the death of many subjects. The findings, used with no ethical consideration, were documented and presented in a manner that sought to provide pseudo-scientific backing for the regime's ideologies. Chemical warfare experiments were also prevalent. Prisoners were exposed to deadly gases and other harmful substances to assess their effects on the human body. Survivors of these experiments often faced long-term health issues or were left with permanent injuries. While this grotesque pursuit of knowledge, supposed to contribute to military advantages, it fundamentally disregarded the sanctity of human life and dignity. Additionally, sterilization and fertility tests were carried out with the explicit intent to control the reproductive capabilities of marginalized groups. Some women underwent forced sterilization procedures under the guise of medical treatment. This was part of a broader vision held by the Nazis to pursue an ideal of racial purity and to prevent certain populations from reproducing. Many of these women were left scarred, both physically and emotionally, as a result of these invasive procedures. The realm of psychological experimentation also saw dark developments. Some tests aimed to determine the mental limits of those held captive. Individuals were subjected to extreme stress, sensory deprivation, and other torturous methods, designed to observe how far one could be pushed before breaking, leading to irreversible psychological damage. Furthermore, there were attempts to study infectious diseases, with prisoners being deliberately infected with typhus and other conditions. Physicians aimed to discover vaccines and treatments, but the subjects were treated more like lab animals than human beings. As a result, countless lives were lost due to inadequate care and the absence of ethical medical standards. The aftermath of these horrific experiments revealed not only the physical pain inflicted, but also a deep psychological scar across generations. The surviving victims often lived with the memories of their torment, facing long-lasting trauma and health complications. Conversely, the perpetrators of these atrocities often walked away unscathed following the war. This unsettling reality led to an imperative for a moral reckoning in the post-war world, one that insisted on the importance of humanity in medical practices and the necessity of ethical standards in research. As society progressed, the tragic lessons of these experiments contributed to the formation of international ethical codes in medicine, such as the Nuremberg Code, which established crucial guidelines to protect human rights in medical research. The echoes of this dark past serve as a vital reminder of the importance of ethical conduct in scientific inquiry. This cautionary tale continues to influence how research is conducted today, emphasizing respect for all persons, regardless of circumstances. Through understanding these events, we grasp not only the depths of human cruelty, but also the resilience of spirit that strives for dignity and compassion in healthcare. It calls upon us to remain vigilant, ensuring that history does not repeat itself, and to honor the memories of those who suffered by advocating for a world where the sanctity of life takes precedence above all else. The collective commitment to the ethical treatment of individuals in medical research can transform past horrors into a future of hope and healing, one where every life is valued and respected. It reinforces our shared responsibility as human beings to uphold the dignity of each individual and to protect the vulnerable from such atrocities ever happening again. Operation Northwoods was a covert plan proposed in the early 1960s by the United States Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The aim of this controversial project was to develop a series of deceptive, yet convincing, justifications for military intervention in Cuba, where tensions were escalating under the leadership of Fidel Castro. At the heart of Operation Northwoods was the idea of employing false flag operations, which involve carrying out acts that appear to be perpetrated by an enemy, thereby provoking a desired response, in this case, military action. In the context of the Cold War, the U.S. was increasingly alarmed by the leftist government in Cuba, particularly after the Cuban Revolution of 1959. Castro's regime had established close ties with the Soviet Union, raising concerns about the spread of communism in Latin America. Various anti-Castro groups were actively seeking ways to undermine Castro's government, and the U.S. was exploring different strategies to support these efforts. Operation Northwoods emerged as one of those strategies. The project included multiple proposals, some of which were startling in their imagination and scope. One of the ideas was to stage a series of attacks against U.S. military and civilian targets, which would be attributed to Cuban agents or supporters. For example, the plan suggested that American planes could be hijacked and then blown up over the ocean. Another proposal involved creating a fake incident where Cuban troops were depicted attacking an American military installation, thus providing a pretext for retaliation. One particularly audacious element of the operation involved using a small boat to simulate a sinking ship, claiming it had been destroyed by a Cuban attack. This would not only generate public outrage, but also create the illusion of legitimate grounds for military intervention. The architects of this plan believed that these orchestrated events would galvanize public and political support for military action against Cuba. Interestingly, Operation Northwoods never came to fruition. President John F. Kennedy, who was known to be skeptical of aggressive military responses, rejected the proposals when they were presented to him. His administration opted for different approaches, focusing instead on diplomatic methods and supporting direct counterinsurgency measures against Castro's regime. Over time, the Cold War dynamic shifted, and Cuba became less of an immediate focus for U.S. military intervention. In the years that followed, the details of Operation Northwoods remained largely classified. It wasn't until the early 2000s that documents related to the plan were declassified and made available to the public, sparking renewed interest and debate about covert military operations and their ethical implications. The revelations highlighted how governments might be tempted to manipulate public perception in pursuit of political goals, an issue that resonates in discussions about statecraft and accountability to this day. Critics of Operation Northwoods pointed out the moral dilemmas inherent in such deceptions. The proposal raised significant ethical considerations, as the end goal, justifying military action, would involve not only the potential sacrifice of innocent lives, but also the manipulation of the very principles of governance that democratic societies uphold. The general public's trust in government can be profoundly affected when it learns that officials considered such extreme measures. Though the plan did not materialize, it serves as a case study for understanding the lengths to which military and political figures might go during times of heightened tension. It prompts one to think critically about the narratives presented by governments, especially in times of crisis, and to question the motivations behind certain actions. In the geopolitical landscape, the implications of false flag operations can be far-reaching, influencing public opinion, foreign relations, and international law. In examining Operation Northwoods, we also consider how this blend of strategy and ethics continues to be relevant today. The dynamics of information warfare and propaganda shape modern discourse, underscoring the importance of skepticism and inquiry when assessing information provided by authorities. It is vital to remain aware of the potential for manipulation in order to foster informed decision-making among the populace. Thus, Operation Northwoods stands not only as a historical curiosity, but as a reminder of the complexities of international relations and the moral responsibilities associated with governance. The narrative invites us to think deeply about the nature of power, truth, and the sometimes murky waters of statecraft. Understanding such events enriches our perspective, providing invaluable lessons on the importance of transparency, accountability, and ethical leadership. These considerations remain relevant and necessary in a world where decisions made by leaders can have lasting impacts on lives and nations. The Tuskegee syphilis study stands as a deeply troubling chapter in American medical history, often serving as a stark reminder of ethics gone awry. Initiated in 1932 in Macon County, Alabama, this study was designed to observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis in African American men. At the time, syphilis was a significant public health issue, and researchers sought to gather data that would help in understanding the disease. The study initially involved 600 African American men, of whom 399 had syphilis, while 201 did not. These participants were mostly poor and uneducated, and many were sharecroppers living in a rural environment. Researchers led by the U.S. Public Health Service told the men they were receiving treatment for bad blood, a term commonly used in the South referring to a mix of ailments, including fatigue, syphilis, and anemia, among others. However, treatment with penicillin had become widely available by the late 1940s, yet the men involved in the study were not offered this life-saving antibiotic. The motivations behind the study were deeply flawed and steeped in racial prejudice. The researchers believed that African American men were less likely to seek medical help and that their responses to the disease could be different from those of white patients. This idea reflected the broader racial biases of the era, which often considered black individuals as inferior or less deserving of medical care. As the years passed, the scientists involved continued to gather data, all while deliberately withholding treatment, even as ethical medical practices began to evolve. Participants were subjected to painful and invasive procedures, such as spinal taps, which were presented as special free treatment. Many participants remained unaware of their diagnosis, and the study's implications for their health and that of their families were severe. The men were not only left without treatment for their syphilis, but were also unaware of the risks and complications associated with the disease. Many suffered severe health effects, and some died as a result of untreated syphilis. In 1947, penicillin was established as an effective treatment for syphilis. However, the researchers chose to continue the study with no changes, justifying their actions under the guise of scientific inquiry. By the time the study was exposed to the public in 1972, only 74 of the original participants were still alive. The uproar that followed led to the study's termination and brought to light the ethical violations that had been committed for decades. The outcry against the Tuskegee syphilis study prompted important advancements in ethical medical research. The study significantly influenced how ethical guidelines would be established for future human subjects research. It led to the creation of the Belmont Report in 1979, which set forth principles of respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. These ethical principles now form the foundation of research involving human subjects, ensuring that informed consent is obtained and that participants are treated with dignity and respect. In 1997, President Bill Clinton formally apologized on behalf of the United States government for the injustices of the Tuskegee study. This apology aimed to recognize the suffering of the victims and the betrayal of trust they experienced. Additionally, some survivors received reparations, and the study triggered a reevaluation of trust between the African American community and the healthcare system. The legacy of the Tuskegee syphilis study is not merely a historical account of wrongdoing. It serves as a powerful reminder of the influence of racism in public health and medicine. The mistrust that stemmed from this study has had long-lasting effects, contributing to ongoing disparities in healthcare access and quality among minority populations. It's essential to remember the stories behind such events and to continually educate ourselves about the ethical responsibilities that come with conducting research, particularly involving vulnerable populations. By understanding the past, we can work towards a more equitable medical future where people from all backgrounds receive the respect and care they deserve. The Tuskegee syphilis study ultimately highlights the importance of ethical standards in research. It serves as a call to action for researchers and healthcare professionals to uphold principles of integrity and compassion in their work. The world is full of potential for advancements in science and medicine, but it must always be balanced with accountability and respect for human rights. Reflecting on the lessons learned from this dark chapter can help ensure that history does not repeat itself. By confronting uncomfortable truths and striving for a more just healthcare system, we can help build a future where the dignity of every individual is protected and valued. The Bhopal Gas Tragedy is one of the most devastating industrial disasters in history, occurring in the Indian city of Bhopal on the night of December 2-3, 1984. This catastrophic event exposed a large population to toxic gases, leaving a profound mark on the community and raising crucial questions about industrial safety and environmental regulations. The disaster unfolded at the Union Carbide India Limited pesticide plant. This facility was designed to produce a pesticide called methyl isocyanate, commonly known as MIC, which is essential for agricultural production. Although this chemical has legitimate uses, it is also highly toxic and extremely dangerous if released into the environment. Problems began to emerge when safety protocols at the plant were neglected. Many safety systems that could have prevented the gas leak were either malfunctioning or turned off entirely to save money. On that fateful night, a series of mechanical failures and human errors culminated in the release of approximately 40 tons of methyl isocyanate gas into the atmosphere. The winds carried the invisible cloud of poison across the nearby community, which was home to around 500,000 people. In just a matter of hours, residents began to experience severe symptoms: gasping for breath, eye irritation, and intense physical pain. Families were torn from their homes, and countless lives were altered forever. Immediate medical attention was woefully inadequate. Hospitals were overwhelmed, with thousands of patients presenting similar symptoms, and many who inhaled the gas were left without proper treatment. The chaos that ensued compounded the tragedy. Local clinics ran out of oxygen supplies, and many individuals were unable to get the immediate care they desperately needed. In the aftermath, the devastating impacts of the gas leak became increasingly clear. An official death toll reported over 2,000 immediate fatalities, while estimates suggest that thousands more suffered long-term health issues resulting from exposure. Respiratory problems, neurological disorders, and a host of other chronic conditions were reported in the years following the incident. The psychological effects were equally damaging, with many survivors grappling with trauma from the disaster. The Bhopal Gas Tragedy raised urgent questions about corporate responsibility. Union Carbide, the company responsible for the plant, faced immense scrutiny over its safety protocols and response to the disaster. Investigations revealed that costs had taken precedence over safety measures, which ultimately led to the disaster. In the years that followed, the company attempted to distance itself from the implications of the tragedy, but the impact on the community remained profound. In response to this unimaginable scenario, advocacy groups emerged to push for justice for the victims. The tragedy galvanized both local and international activism, calling for stricter regulations and enforcement of safety standards. Legal battles raged for decades as survivors sought compensation for medical care and damages. Many argued that the compensation offered was grossly inadequate when balanced against the scale of suffering inflicted. The hub of activism emphasized the importance of ensuring that similar incidents wouldn't happen again. Today, the legacy of the Bhopal gas tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of neglecting safety in industrial practices. It has spurred discussions on the importance of environmental policies, as well as the need for robust disaster preparedness in densely populated areas. Various environmental and labor organizations often reference Bhopal in their campaigns to improve workplace safety standards and protect vulnerable communities from industrial hazards. Additionally, the tragedy led to the establishment of stricter safety regulations and protocols in India, and prompted greater awareness of industrial risks worldwide. Training programs were developed for workers, focusing on emergency response and safety procedures, aiming to ensure that both workers and communities remain protected from the hazardous side of industrial activities. In the decades since, several memorials have been erected to honor the victims of the gas leak and remind society of the importance of safety and industries handling toxic substances. The resilience of the affected community should also be acknowledged. Though they faced immense suffering, many survivors have become advocates for change, ensuring that their stories and the memory of those lost are not forgotten. The Bhopal gas tragedy remains a critical case study in industrial safety and environmental justice, prompting ongoing conversations about the ethics of corporate responsibility, the protection of public health, and the rights of workers. It serves as a powerful call to action, urging society to remain vigilant about safety protocols, to demand accountability from corporations, and to foster a culture that prioritizes human life over profit. As we reflect on this heart-rending event, we must remain committed to learning from the past to prevent history from repeating itself. In the early 1900s, the small town of LaPorte, Indiana, became the center of a chilling series of events that shocked the nation. The figure at the heart of this horrifying tale was Belle Gunness, a woman whose life story would become synonymous with mystery, heartbreak, and intrigue. Born Brynhild Paulsdatter Storsith in Norway in 1859, Belle immigrated to America in 1881, seeking a better life filled with opportunity and prosperity. She settled in Chicago, where she initially worked as a domestic servant. Over time, she managed to open her own confectionery shop. However, her newfound success was short-lived, as a mysterious fire consumed her shop, leading to an insurance payout that significantly bolstered her finances. This event was just the beginning of a series of suspicious incidents that would follow Belle throughout her life. Belle was known for her striking appearance, characterized by her sharp features and commanding presence. Additionally, she was a resourceful and cunning woman. After her shop burned down, she leveraged her insurance settlements to acquire real estate, leading her to own multiple properties. Yet, her ambitions did not end there. Belle craved wealth and comfort, and soon her motivations would take a darker turn. In the late 1900s, Belle Gunness turned to personal ads as a means of luring men into her life. Her advertisements, placed in local newspapers, were meticulously crafted to attract suitors with promises of love, companionship, and a life of happiness. Men responded in droves, drawn by Belle's promises and the allure of starting a new life with her. She presented herself as a widow, having lost her first husband under unclear circumstances, further adding to the mystery surrounding her. As men traveled from various states to meet Belle, their initial enthusiasm would soon morph into trepidation. Many arrived at her farm, where they were greeted with warmth and hospitality. However, it soon became evident that these meetings often took a sinister turn. Belle's hospitality concealed a much darker agenda. It is believed she may have murdered several of her suitors, with the intent of acquiring their wealth. Investigations into Belle's life revealed a chilling trend. Many of the men who vanished after meeting her were wealthy or had substantial savings which Belle would inherit if they disappeared. Witnesses later recalled that visiting suitors would often comment on her farm, admiring its rustic charm and the promise of a future together. Unfortunately for many, this future would never materialize. One particularly unsettling aspect of Belle's strategy lay within her cunning manipulation of the insurance system. Each time a tragedy struck, be it the suspicious deaths of her husbands or the mysterious fires that consumed her homes, Belle would collect insurance payouts that allowed her to finance her next venture. People began to suspect that all was not right, yet Belle maintained an image of grief and innocence. In 1908, a fire consumed Belle's home, bringing her reign of terror to a more dramatic conclusion. As the flames engulfed the structure, the charred remains of a body were discovered inside, reportedly that of Belle herself. Yet many doubted this claim. The body was unidentifiable, and it sparked a frenzy of speculation. Was the woman truly Belle Gunness, or had she staged her own demise? Local authorities soon began digging through the remains of her property, unearthing bones and human remains scattered across her land. The revelations were shocking. It became evident that Belle's farm had been the site of numerous grisly events. Investigators found the remains of at least 14 people buried on her property, each holding stories of lost lives and promises unfulfilled. These discoveries generated headlines across the country. The tale of Belle Gunness became a national sensation, capturing the imagination of the public and bringing forth an array of theories. Was she an elusive mastermind, or had she simply slipped through the cracks of society's surveillance? Merchants and townsfolk speculated about how she had managed to manipulate so many, gaining their trust before orchestrating their downfall. Many theories emerged in the wake of her apparent death. Some suggested she had fled to escape justice, perhaps even adopting a new identity. Others believed that she had taken her own life out of desperation. Speculation thrived, with individuals going so far as to claim sightings of Belle in various cities across the United States. Despite the uncertainty surrounding her fate, Belle Gunness left a lasting legacy as one of America's earliest known female serial killers. Her story serves as a potent reminder of the darker aspects of human nature and the depths to which some individuals will go in pursuit of wealth and power. The fear and intrigue her life inspired linger to this day, reminding us that even in the most idyllic settings, shadows of darkness can hide profound secrets. In modern times, the tale of Belle Gunness continues to be explored in books, documentaries, and dramatizations, allowing new generations to grapple with the chilling reality that sits at the intersection of ambition and immoral intent. Belle Gunness's life is not simply a story of murder. It reflects the complexities of human behavior, revealing how greed can corrupt and how the allure of wealth can lead even the most seemingly ordinary individuals down haunting paths. The Black Death, which swept through Europe in the mid-14th century, remains one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. This catastrophe is estimated to have killed between 25 million and 30 million people, about one-third of Europe's population at the time. Its impact was not just in terms of the lives lost, but also in how it reshaped society, economy, and even culture in profound ways. The disease responsible for the Black Death was bubonic plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. The plague is primarily transmitted through fleas that live on rats. It is believed that the epidemic originated in Central Asia and made its way along trade routes, such as the Silk Road, eventually reaching Europe through major ports. In 1347, the first signs of the plague became evident as it arrived in Mediterranean ports. When the disease reached Sicily, it quickly spread across the continent. Merchants and sailors, unknowingly carrying the disease, returned home and brought the plague with them. Towns that once flourished with life became silent and empty, their streets filled with fear and despair. One of the most chilling aspects of the Black Death was how rapidly it spread. In many cases, victims would be healthy in the morning and dead by nightfall. The symptoms of the disease were gruesome and terrifying, often starting with swollen lymph nodes, fever, and an overall feeling of extreme malaise. It would eventually lead to blackening of the skin and severe pain, which is how the term Black Death came into use. As the death toll continued to rise, people's reactions varied. Some turned to religion, believing the plague was a punishment from God. Flagellant movements emerged, where individuals would self-flagellate as a form of penance, believing that this would absolve their sins and stop the plague. Others resorted to superstition, seeking magical cures or scapegoats, often targeting marginalized groups within society. Society itself began to shift dramatically in response to this crisis. The labor force was decimated, resulting in a labor shortage that allowed surviving workers to demand better wages and working conditions. This shift in power dynamics led to the decline of feudalism, a system that had dominated the region for centuries. Families were torn apart. Many chose to abandon their loved ones, fearing they too would be infected. Others cared for the sick at great personal risk. The social fabric of communities changed drastically as trust eroded and grief enveloped whole towns. The loss also impacted artistic expression of the time. Themes of death, despair, and mortality became prevalent in art and literature. Works such as The Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio portray the human condition amidst suffering and highlight the stark reality of life during the plague. As time went on, the pandemic finally receded, but its effects lingered. The population of Europe took decades to recover, and many regions experienced significant economic changes. Agricultural practices changed as well. With fewer people to work the land, estates were often abandoned, leading to the rewilding of certain areas. The Black Death also had a profound impact on medicine. The understanding of disease transmission was rudimentary at best, but the sheer scale of the tragedy resulted in a greater emphasis on the need for health care and public health measures. Although many medieval beliefs persisted, eventually the plague prompted a more scientific inquiry into medicine that would lay the groundwork for advancements in public health to come. In the aftermath, Europe began to transform. The Renaissance, a period characterized by a resurgence in art, culture, and intellectual thought, began to emerge. It is argued that the societal shifts initiated by the Black Death paved the way for this cultural rebirth. The demand for skilled laborers led to the rise of a more prosperous middle class, ultimately influencing everything from commerce and politics to philosophy and art. The legacy of the Black Death continues to be studied, revealing insights into human resilience and adaptability in the face of overwhelming adversity. It serves as a historical lesson not only about the fragility of life, but also about the profound changes that can stem from crises. The interplay of human behavior, societal structures, and health systems during this tumultuous period continues to resonate in our understanding of modern epidemics and how communities respond to them. In conclusion, while the Black Death was a tragic event, its influence was far-reaching, altering the course of history. It serves as a reminder of the complex and often unpredictable nature of human existence, the interplay between society and disease, and the lasting effects of collective trauma and transformation. This period in history illustrates that while survival may come at a great cost, it can also lead to profound changes and new beginnings, shaping the future in ways that can sometimes be unexpected. Pripyat, a name that sends shivers down the spine, evokes images of desolation and eerie silence. Nestled in Ukraine, near the infamous Chernobyl nuclear power plant, this once vibrant city was home to over 49,000 residents before a catastrophic event changed everything forever. It is now known as a ghost town, a haunting reminder of human fragility and nature's power. Founded in 1970, Pripyat was a modern socialist city built to accommodate the workers of the nearby Chernobyl plant. It was touted as a model city with amenities such as a swimming pool, a cinema, and schools. The architecture reflected the optimism of the age, with concrete apartment blocks and wide boulevards bustling with life. Children played in the parks, couples walked hand in hand along tree-lined avenues, and the sounds of laughter and conversation filled the air. However, on April 26, 1986, a tragedy struck when reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl plant exploded during a safety test. This unforeseen disaster released a massive amount of radioactive isotopes into the atmosphere, changing the fate of Pripyat and its inhabitants forever. Authorities acted swiftly, ordering an immediate evacuation of the city. Within just a few hours, families gathered their belongings and left their homes, believing they would return shortly. They had no idea that this departure would be permanent. As the dust settled and the chaos of the disaster unfolded, Pripyat was slowly reclaimed by nature. The vibrant city began to fade into a shell of its former self. The parks, once alive with children's laughter, turned into wild landscapes. Trees grew through the pavement, while flowers blossomed in the cracks of buildings. The world outside continued unaware of the poignant stillness that enveloped the abandoned city. One of the most haunting images of Pripyat is the Ferris wheel, a symbol of joy that now rests silently, a relic left behind. It was set to open in May 1986, just weeks after the disaster. Visitors often capture photographs of this iconic structure, which stands as a poignant reminder of the normalcy that once filled this city. The contrast between the joy of amusement and the somber reality of abandonment creates an atmosphere that is both haunting and thought-provoking. Buildings in Pripyat remain eerily intact, with personal belongings left as they were. Tables are set with dishes, children's toys lie scattered, and clothes hang as if their owners might return at any moment. It is a time capsule frozen in history. As nature reclaims its territory, walls are adorned with peeling paint, and rust creeps over metal fixtures. This creeping decay paints a picture of time standing still, trapping the memories and lives of those who once called this place home. Visiting Pripyat feels like stepping into another world. Tourists and urban explorers venture into the city, drawn by the mystery and serenity that permeates the air. Guides often share stories of the lives that were once lived within these walls, detailing a community that champions solidarity and optimism. They recount tales of families, friendships, and the routines that colored everyday life, painting a vivid picture of the past amidst the desolation of the present. Nature has both healed and transformed the landscape. Animals have returned to the area, with wildlife thriving in the absence of humans. Gray wolves, deer, and even rare species have made their homes in the shadow of abandoned structures. This regrowth is a testament to the resilience of nature, which triumphs even in the aftermath of human failings. The eerie beauty of Pripyat serves as a haunting reminder of nature's capacity to reclaim territory, serving as a poignant juxtaposition against the stark reality of what occurred. Walking through the empty streets of Pripyat, one can almost hear the echoes of the laughter and joy that once filled the air. It's a place where silence speaks volumes, and ghostly reminders of life intertwine with the weave of history. Each step carries the weight of memories, resonating with a sense of loss, while simultaneously showcasing the resilience of life. The remnants of Pripyat serve as an essential lesson in awareness, reminding us of the consequences of our actions. The stories behind the abandoned buildings urge us to reflect on our relationship with technology, the environment, and one another. The unique blend of haunting beauty and historical significance draws people from around the world, making Pripyat not just a ghost city, but a powerful monument to the lessons learned from the past. As you wander through the resilience of these hallowed halls, take a moment to pause and listen. The wind carries whispers of the lives that played out in these streets, and the gentle rustling of leaves serves as a reminder of nature's eternal presence in the face of human tragedy. In Pripyat, one finds a place where the past, the present, and the future intertwine, creating a haunting tableau that continues to captivate the imagination of those who dare to explore its depths. The Great Smog of London in December 1952 stands as one of the most significant environmental events in the history of the United Kingdom. This thick blanket of smog not only shocked the city, but also left an indelible mark on policies regarding air quality. To understand the magnitude of this event, we need to consider its causes, effects, and the aftermath that reshaped public health views around air pollution. In the winter months of 1952, London was engulfed in a cold snap. As the temperature dropped, Londoners turned to their traditional means of heating their homes, coal. This led to a dramatic increase in the burning of low-quality coal, which was high in sulfur and other pollutants. The city's infrastructure primarily relied on this form of energy, with a high concentration of coal-fired power plants. As pollution from these sources rose along with the freezing temperatures, the smog began to form. This particular episode of smog was worsened by the geography of London. The city sits in a basin, surrounded by hills. As the cold weather settled in, the cold air trapped the heavier, polluted air close to the surface, creating a thick, toxic fog that shrouded the city. Visibility dropped to just a few meters in some areas. Reports described the smog as so dense that it dulled the bright lights of buses and street lamps, forcing cars to drive with their headlights on during the day. The effects of the smog were immediate and dire. As the thick haze rolled over London, it began to wreak havoc on the health of its inhabitants. Schools closed, public transportation faced severe disruptions, and many people found it difficult to breathe. Hospitals reported a significant increase in respiratory problems, and even people without prior health issues were suddenly experiencing serious difficulties. It was as if a silent predator had descended upon the city, causing chaos and confusion among its citizens. The aftermath of the Great Smog was nothing short of catastrophic. By the time the weather conditions finally changed and the smog dispersed after just a few days, it was estimated that around 4,000 people had died. This staggering figure was later updated to suggest that related complications might have led to as many as 12,000 deaths over the following weeks. The smog also caused thousands to seek medical assistance, with hospitals flooding with respiratory cases and additional complications from pre-existing health issues. Government response to this critical event was a turning point in environmental policy. Public outrage grew over the apparent ignorance toward air quality issues, which had been ignored for too long. The health crisis catalyzed discussions about the importance of clean air and the role of industrial emissions in public health. Within a year, the UK Parliament passed the Clean Air Act of 1956, which aimed to combat air pollution by establishing smoke-free zones and promoting the use of cleaner fuels. This legislation marked a clear commitment to improving air quality and protecting public health. In the years following the Clean Air Act, London saw significant improvements in air quality. The once prevalent sight of dense fog filled with pollutants started to diminish, making way for clearer skies. Initiatives were introduced to convert homes and businesses away from coal and towards cleaner energy sources. The event also sparked similar movements in other cities around the world, emphasizing the need for stricter regulations on air quality. Beyond the immediate health impacts, the Great Smog serves as a powerful reminder of the intricate relationship between industrial activity and environmental health. It highlighted the vulnerability of urban populations to pollution and the importance of sustainable practices in safeguarding public health. Notably, the smog not only raised awareness but also stimulated research into the effects of air pollution, leading to advancements in understanding respiratory diseases and their links to environmental factors. Today, the lessons learned from the Great Smog of London continue to resonate. As cities worldwide grapple with new challenges brought about by industrialization and climate change, the importance of prioritizing clean air remains evident. Many urban areas are now adopting policies similar to those introduced after the Great Smog, recognizing that proactive measures can lead to healthier environments. In conclusion, the Great Smog of London was not just a localized event. It served as a wake-up call for many nations regarding the consequences of poor air quality. The tragedy that ensued pushed society to reconsider its dependency on fossil fuels and highlighted the need for cooperative action to ensure the well-being of future generations. It stands as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for change, reminding us that air quality is a matter of life and death, shaping the communities we live in and the health of our planet. As we navigate the complexities of modern living, the importance of clean air and environmental stewardship has never been clearer. In 1978, a tragic event unfolded in the remote jungles of Guyana that would shock the world and leave an indelible mark on history. This event, known as the Jonestown Massacre, centers around a mysterious figure named Jim Jones and the community he established, known as the People's Temple. Understanding the circumstances that led to this event requires delving into not just the actions on that fateful day, but the larger context of cult dynamics and psychological manipulation. Jim Jones was a charismatic leader who founded the People's Temple in the 1950s in Indiana. Initially, the group espoused progressive ideas, advocating for civil rights and social equality. Jones's rhetoric attracted individuals seeking a sense of belonging and purpose. Over time, however, his leadership style became increasingly authoritarian and paranoid. His followers were drawn into a complex web of ideology, emotional dependence, and isolation from the outside world. As the People's Temple gained more followers, Jones moved the community to California in the 1960s, where they attracted attention for their social initiatives, including contributions to the civil rights movement. However, behind this facade of progressivism, Jones's methods grew more controlling. He implemented strict rules, monitored personal interactions, and demanded absolute loyalty from his followers. The environment became one where dissent was not tolerated, and questioning the leader was viewed as betrayal. Facing growing scrutiny from the media and concerned family members, Jones decided to establish a commune in Guyana, which he dubbed Jonestown. This settlement, advertised as a utopian paradise, became a refuge for his followers seeking to escape what they viewed as a corrupt society. However, life in Jonestown was far from idyllic. The isolation from friends, family, and the outside world continued, and Jones's control tightened. Many followers worked tirelessly in the community, believing they were part of a noble cause. Yet reports began to emerge that pointed to the repressive conditions within the settlement. Individuals reported instances of abuse, routine surveillance, and harsh punishments for disobedience. Jones maintained a grip on power through a combination of charisma and fear, creating an environment where loyalty to him was paramount. Tensions escalated when U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan visited Jonestown in November 1978. He came to investigate reports of human rights abuses and to ensure the well-being of the members. Ryan's visit led to a revelation for many, shining a light on the internal struggles and dissent within the community. During his visit, several members expressed a desire to leave with him, fearing for their safety. As Ryan and his group departed Jonestown, a tragic and chaotic turn of events unfolded. Armed loyalists from the People's Temple ambushed the departing party, resulting in the deaths of Ryan and 4 others. The response from Jones was shocking. He orchestrated a mass gathering, where he urged his followers to partake in what he described as a revolutionary act, framing it as a path to freedom from the oppressive world outside. On November 18, 1978, over 900 members of the People's Temple tragically lost their lives in a mass suicide murder. The method primarily used was a cyanide-laced drink, which Jones insisted offered a peaceful escape from their struggles. Followers were led to believe that this act was necessary to avoid capture and persecution by the external world. Children were involved in this event under the guise of a communal act. The horrors of that day left an indelible mark on history and psychology, sparking discussions about cults, manipulation, and the human psyche. The Jonestown Massacre raises critical questions about power, belief, and the human condition. How can individuals become so committed to a cause that they lose sight of their instincts for survival? How does manipulation take hold in such a profound way? It serves as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking, the power of persuasion, and the dangers posed by charismatic leaders who exploit the vulnerabilities of their followers. Years after the tragedy, the legacy of the Jonestown Massacre continues to evoke profound sadness and confusion. The event not only impacted the families of those involved, but also generated discussions about the complexities of faith and loyalty. It compelled scholars, psychologists, and sociologists to study the nature of cults and the psychological mechanisms that allow such tragedies to unfold. The world learned painful lessons from Jonestown about how easily group dynamics can sway individuals into extreme beliefs and behaviors. Today, community vigilance, education about cults, and mental health awareness are essential in helping people recognize signs of manipulation and control. The story of Jonestown serves as both a cautionary tale and a profound reflection of the intricacies of human relationships and the pursuit of belonging. As we reflect on these events, it's crucial to remember not just the numbers or the historical impact, but the individuals whose lives were intertwined with Jim Jones's vision. Each life lost represented a story, a dream, a hope, that was extinguished in the name of a distorted ideology. Understanding their experience helps us nurture compassion and mindfulness in our own interactions, promoting communities grounded in respect, understanding, and genuine connection. In the 1920s, a group of young women known as the Radium Dial Painters became known for their unique and glowing work. These women were hired to paint watch dials and instruments using a paint that contained radioactive radium. At the time, radium was celebrated for its luminescent properties and was thought to have health benefits. This made the job seem both glamorous and promising. Imagine being one of these young women, filled with excitement as you enter the factory, greeted by the glow of your freshly painted creations. The job offered good pay for the era, often considered a desirable opportunity for women who had limited career options at the time. With each delicate stroke of the brush, they added a shimmering touch to the watch faces that would catch the eye and enchant the public. To enhance the precision of their work, the painters were taught to point their brushes with their lips. This technique allowed for finer detail on the intricate watch dials. The radium paint had to be applied carefully to ensure that the watch would glow in the dark, making it easier to tell time in low light conditions. These ladies would even playfully paint their nails and faces with the luminous paint, thinking it was a fun and harmless practice. However, unbeknownst to them, the very substance that added beauty to their work was slowly becoming a source of great harm. Over time, many of these women began to experience alarming health issues. Some reported severe pain and swelling in their jaws, leading to difficulty in eating and speaking. Others suffered from anemia, fatigue, and inexplicable weakness. As these symptoms escalated, it became evident that their exposure to radium was much more dangerous than anyone had initially realized. The situation turned grave when several of the women developed serious illnesses, including bone necrosis, which is the death of bone tissue due to a lack of blood supply. This condition was particularly heartbreaking, as it often led to the painful extraction of teeth, and in some cases, even resulted in cancer. Despite the growing numbers of affected women, the companies employing them minimized the risks associated with radium exposure. Faced with severe health conditions and little support, the radium dial painters banded together to seek justice and raise awareness of their plight. Many of them had to fight legal battles, leading to several landmark cases that changed workplace safety regulations across the nation. Their bravery and willingness to tell their stories ignited public outrage, shining a light on the dangers of radium and the importance of safeguarding workers' rights. The impact of their struggle reached far beyond their specific situation. The stories of the radium dial painters became a catalyst for change, leading to increased scrutiny of workplace safety standards and labor practices. The challenges they faced highlighted the need for protective regulations for workers in hazardous occupations, and they paved the way for future generations to work in safer environments. Today, we remember the radium dial painters not only for their contributions to the watchmaking industry, but also for the sacrifices they made in pursuit of better working conditions and health safety. Their legacy serves as a reminder of the critical importance of worker rights and health standards, which continue to evolve to protect individuals in all occupations. In a world where many industries are driven by a desire for progress, the story of the radium dial painters encourages us to remain vigilant and compassionate. It invites us to consider the implications of our choices, especially regarding the health and safety of those around us. Their lives, marked by both beauty and tragedy, remind us that behind every industry, there are human stories that deserve to be told and respected. Even decades later, their experiences resonate in discussions about safety regulations and consumer protection. Their fight was not in vain. It led to significant changes in how we view hazardous materials and the responsibilities of employers. As we reflect on the past, it's essential to honor the courage of these women and acknowledge the lessons that emerged from their hardships, inspiring us to uphold the dignity and safety of every worker today. Consider how this narrative interweaves with the evolution of our industrial society, where innovation can serve both light and shadow. It is a testament to the enduring spirit of those young women, whose radiant dreams were overshadowed by a dark reality, yet ultimately ignited a movement toward safer practices and greater awareness in the workplace. Their legacy lives on, illuminating the path for future generations. In the aftermath of World War II, a significant event took place that would shape the future of technology and science in the United States. This event, known as Operation Paperclip, involved the clandestine recruitment of German scientists, engineers, and technicians who had been associated with the Nazi regime. While often portrayed in stark moral terms, the operation reflects the complex decisions made in a unique historical context. As the war came to a close in 1945, the Allies had a difficult choice to make. Many of these German specialists were at the forefront of developing advanced technologies that had played a critical role in the war effort. They were responsible for innovations in rocketry, jet propulsion, and even medical advancements. The United States, recognizing the potential threat posed by the Soviet Union, saw a need to acquire these experts to bolster its own scientific and military capabilities during the emerging Cold War. One of the key figures in this operation was Wernher von Braun, a rocket scientist who had initially worked on the V-2 rocket for the Nazis. Von Braun's expertise in rocket technology was revolutionary. After the war, he was brought to the U.S., where he would later become instrumental in the development of the American space program. His work helped to propel the United States to the forefront of space exploration, culminating in the historic Apollo moon landing in 1969. However, von Braun's story is just one of many within Operation Paperclip. The operation was not without its controversies. While some scientists were brought over for their knowledge and skills, others had questionable pasts, including involvement in human experimentation, forced labor, and war crimes. This raised ethical dilemmas that continue to resonate today. How does a nation balance moral integrity with national security and technological advancement? A lesser-known element of Operation Paperclip involved scientists who were experts in various fields beyond rocketry. For example, some were involved in medical research, contributing to advancements that would have far-reaching effects on the health and well-being of millions. Their work laid the groundwork for technologies such as advanced pharmaceuticals and treatments that are still in use today. The collaboration between these formerly adversarial figures and American scientists underscores the complicated nature of progress. As the program progressed, it resulted in a significant transfer of knowledge and technology that would affect multiple sectors, including military applications, aerospace, and even consumer products. This influx of expertise helped America solidify its position as a technological superpower during a period characterized by intense competition with the Soviet Union. Operation Paperclip also exemplified the psychological complexities faced by those who worked on the program. Many scientists had mixed feelings about their past affiliations. Some distanced themselves from their previous roles, while others grappled with the repercussions on their conscience. The war had been brutal, and while some sought redemption through their contributions to American society, others remained haunted by the shadow of their former lives. The implications of Operation Paperclip extended beyond immediate technical advancements. This initiative contributed to profound shifts in American intelligence and military strategies, as the nation sought to stay ahead not only of its historical enemies, but also of the rapidly developing Soviet threat. Custodians of vast knowledge, these scientists helped shape protocols and policies that still influence modern defense and space exploration initiatives. Interestingly, the impact of this program is seen even today. Elements of their research and developments continue to inspire generations of scientists and engineers. The software that powers various technologies, the principles of aerodynamics and aircraft design, and even the methodologies of certain medical practices can trace their roots back to the expertise brought in during this controversial period. In analyzing Operation Paperclip, it is crucial to recognize the nuanced nature of history. This operation wasn't simply about technological advancement. It was woven into the fabric of a nation striving to redefine itself in post-war situations. The blending of science and morality invites reflection on how society chooses to embrace knowledge amidst a backdrop of ethical considerations. Ultimately, Operation Paperclip remains a compelling chapter in the complex narrative of history. It highlights not only the drive for progress and the insatiable quest for knowledge, but also the moral questions that come along with it. In today's rapidly evolving world, where science and technology play critical roles, the lessons from Operation Paperclip remind us to navigate innovation thoughtfully, weighing both potential benefits and ethical implications. The legacies of the individuals involved and their contributions are a testament to the intertwining paths of history, technology, and humanity. They remind us that while technological advancement can propel societies forward, it must be pursued with careful contemplation of its broader consequences. The stories of these scientists propel us forward into the future, while urging us to remember the past. In the early 1930s, the Soviet Union implemented a series of policies that would have devastating consequences for millions of people, particularly in Ukraine. This tragic event is often referred to as the forced famine or Holodomor, which translates to death by hunger. It was a consequence of the aggressive collectivization policies initiated under the leadership of Joseph Stalin. Stalin believed that the collectivization of agriculture was essential to modernize the Soviet economy and consolidate power. The idea was to eliminate private farms and establish collective farms, where the state would control the production and distribution of food. However, this transition was marked by violence and chaos. Many farmers or peasants resisted these changes, leading to a brutal crackdown by the state. The government responded with force, deporting millions of individuals to labor camps and executing anyone who opposed the collectivization measures. As the government imposed strict grain procurement quotas, farmers were left with little to sustain themselves and their families. These quotas were often impossibly high and, as a result, the state confiscated most of the grain produced. In many cases, entire harvests were seized for export, even as famine loomed over the population. The irony of this policy was stark. While the government shipped grain abroad to gain favor and resources, people in rural areas faced starvation. In Ukraine, which was one of the most fertile regions, the impact was particularly devastating. The rural population had relied on agriculture for their survival, and the harsh policies stripped them of their means of living. Reports emerged of entire communities suffering from malnutrition and starvation. Children, the elderly, and the weak were the most vulnerable. The situation became so dire that many were forced to search for food in fields, scavenging for anything they could find. The famine was marked by a complete breakdown of social order. Many turned to desperate measures to survive. There are accounts of cannibalism, where individuals resorted to unimaginable acts as they faced unbearable hunger. In some areas, farmers hid their food reserves out of fear of confiscation, leading to even greater suffering. Starvation became a commonplace reality, and the death toll escalated as conditions worsened. Estimates suggest that millions of Ukrainians perished during this tragic period, although exact numbers remain contested. Internationally, the response to the famine was problematic. Many in the West were unaware of the extent of the disaster, as the Soviet government worked hard to suppress information and control the narrative. Soviet officials denied the existence of a famine, attributing reports of starvation to anti-Soviet propaganda. Journalists faced harsh repercussions for attempting to expose the grim reality. It wasn't until years later that the full scope of the horror began to emerge. As survivors shared their stories, the world gained a clearer understanding of the ramifications of the Soviet policies enforced during this catastrophic event. The Holodomor is remembered not only as a tragedy for Ukraine, but as a stark reminder of the dangers posed by totalitarian regimes. To this day, it evokes a deep sense of sorrow and prompts discussions about human rights and governance. Within Ukraine, the memory of the Holodomor is honored annually, with special commemorations reflecting on the lost lives and the resilience of those who endured. The need to remember this dark chapter in history serves as a testament to the importance of awareness and acknowledgement of past atrocities. In more recent history, discussions about the Holodomor have reignited debates over political accountability and the responsibilities of governments in times of crisis. The lessons drawn from this episode of history encourage vigilance against authoritarianism and the importance of protecting individual rights. The struggle continues for those who advocate for justice and recognition of the events that transpired. In a world where food security remains a pressing issue, the lessons from the forced famine serve as a reminder of the complexities of agriculture, governance, and humanitarian responsibility. The impact of the Holodomor echoes through generations, informing policies and perceptions related to food distribution, state control, and human rights. Understanding this tragedy is vital not only to honor the memories of those who lost their lives, but also to ensure that such events are never repeated. People across the globe are encouraged to reflect on history and the human capacity for resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. As we delve into the past, we must also look toward the future, fostering empathy and compassion in our approach to governance and community. To this day, the memory of the forced famine acts as a poignant reminder of the values of understanding, support for human dignity, and the very essence of what it means to care for one another. In the early morning hours of September 30th, 1982, the residents of Chicago were unaware that they would soon be engulfed in one of the most notorious cases of product tampering in American history. On that day, 7 people tragically lost their lives after consuming Tylenol capsules that had been laced with cyanide. The shocking incident not only horrified the nation, but also initiated sweeping changes in how products, especially over-the-counter medications, were packaged and sold. The first known victim of this grisly crime was 12-year-old Mary Kellerman, who consumed a Tylenol capsule after complaining of a sore throat. Within hours, she was dead. As news broke about her passing, it initially raised concerns regarding a potential health issue with the medication itself. However, the situation grew increasingly dire when more victims emerged, all having taken Tylenol before their sudden fatalities. Among them were 27-year-old Adam Janis, who died after taking the capsules, and his brother and sister-in-law, who succumbed shortly after attempting to assist him, unaware of the lethal nature of the capsules. As investigators began their hunt for answers, the devastation quickly rippled beyond the families affected. Panic swept through the community, as individuals grew fearful of reaching for medicine that they previously considered safe and relied upon in their everyday lives. Soon, it was clear that these deaths were not the result of manufacturing errors, but rather a calculated act of malice. The capsules had been tampered with after leaving the manufacturer and before reaching the consumers, raising frightening questions about the safety of the pharmaceutical industry. The authorities launched an extensive investigation that captivated the nation. Law enforcement officials explored multiple theories and suspect lists, while the media provided continuous updates, keeping the public on edge. With the fear of tampering spreading like wildfire, stores started pulling Tylenol off the shelves, and consumers were urged to take extra precautions when purchasing medications. The outcry led Johnson & Johnson, the parent company of Tylenol, to respond with both urgency and responsibility. They implemented a massive recall of over 31 million bottles of Tylenol that were in circulation, a move that would later be regarded as a model for crisis management. Their approach was characterized by transparency, empathy, and a strong commitment to safety. The case prompted significant changes in drug packaging across the entire pharmaceutical industry. Consumers were introduced to tamper-evident packaging, which became a standard across all medications. This included safety seals, which ensured that potential buyers could easily identify if a product had been tampered with before purchase. The regulations also extended to food and household items, underscoring a newfound emphasis on consumer safety that hadn't existed prior to the events in Chicago. In the aftermath, as investigators continued their search for the perpetrator, they faced numerous challenges. Leads came and went, and the investigation became a complex web of theories. Various suspects emerged at different points, including disgruntled employees and even a potential local resident. None were ever convicted for the murders, and the case grew cold, leaving families with unanswered questions. The Chicago Tylenol murders are often referenced in discussions about consumer safety and corporate responsibility. The impact of this incident still resonates today. Legal scholars often study the case as a pivotal moment in product liability law that highlighted the responsibilities of both manufacturers and retailers. The incident also sparked debates about ethics in marketing and corporate communication during a crisis. Despite the passage of time, the ghost of this tragedy remains a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities associated with consumer products. Families who were affected by the loss still hold on to the memories of their loved ones taken too soon, while society at large has adopted a more cautious approach toward the safety of consumables. The legacy of the Tylenol murders goes beyond the immediate fallout. It laid the groundwork for the vigilant oversight and regulatory frameworks that today seek to ensure safety in consumer products. As we reflect on this dark chapter in American history, we also recognize the resilience that emerged in its wake. Not only did it lead to increased awareness and regulatory change, but it also united communities in their commitment to safety, reminding individuals of the importance of looking out for one another. The lessons learned from this tragedy have woven themselves into the fabric of consumer expectations and business practices. Through this tragic story of the Chicago Tylenol murders, we see how fear can galvanize change and how a community can come together to demand better practices in the face of adversity. This deeply unsettling event serves as a reminder of both the fragility of life and the strength of those who stand together in the pursuit of safety and justice. The Great Chinese Famine, which took place between 1958 and 1962, marks one of the most tragic and devastating periods in human history. It occurred during a time known as the Great Leap Forward, an ambitious campaign initiated by the Chinese government aimed at rapidly transforming China from an agrarian society into a socialist society through rapid industrialization and collectivization. While the goals were grand, the outcomes were catastrophic, leading to widespread famine that affected millions of people. To understand the context, we must first look at the Great Leap Forward itself. Launched by the Communist Party under the leadership of Mao Zedong, the campaign sought to increase agricultural and industrial production in an effort to catch up to Western economies. One of the key strategies was the establishment of large collective farms, where families would work together in communal units. The idea was that cooperation and shared resources would lead to increased efficiency and output. However, the reality was starkly different. The collectivization process often led to chaos in agricultural production. Farmers were stripped of their individual plots, and many were not incentivized to work hard because the fruits of their labor were shared among the community. This resulted in a decline in productivity, as people became indifferent to the needs of the collective farms. Furthermore, the government pressured local officials to report inflated production figures, which created a distorted view of agricultural success. Instead of ensuring food security, this misinformation exacerbated the food crisis. As the government pushed for ambitious targets, policies concerning crop planting were often misguided. Expert knowledge about crop rotation and effective farming techniques was largely ignored. In some cases, local leaders promoted untested methods, such as deep plowing or excessive irrigation, leading to long-term damage to the soil. The emphasis on quantity over quality meant that the food produced was often not enough to meet the nutritional needs of the population. During the period of the famine, severe weather conditions further complicated the situation. China experienced natural disasters such as droughts and floods, which affected crop yields. Instead of responding to these challenges with adaptive measures, the government continued to enforce harsh policies that insisted on unrealistic production goals. The combination of misguided agricultural practices, mismanagement, and adverse weather created a dire scenario where food became increasingly scarce. As hunger grew, the consequences became tragic. Millions of people faced starvation, and the estimated death toll varies widely, but is believed to be between 15 to 45 million individuals. Families were torn apart, communities were devastated, and social structures began to disintegrate. In rural areas, where the crisis was most severe, stories emerged of individuals resorting to desperate measures to survive. It was not uncommon for there to be reports of cannibalism or extreme malnutrition among the population. The severity of the famine was not just a result of agricultural collapse. They were also fundamentally intertwined with political, social, and economic dynamics of the time. Citizens faced repression as the government sought to suppress dissent. Reporting on the food shortages was often hushed, and many who attempted to speak out against the government faced dire consequences. This created an atmosphere of fear where the truth about the famine could not be widely acknowledged or addressed. In the face of overwhelming despair, certain areas did find ways to cope. Some communities banded together to share resources, while others planted edible plants and gathered wild foods to supplement their diets. Despite the circumstances, human resilience shone through in various efforts, from community support to acts of creativity and courage in the face of adversity. In the wake of the famine, reform became a necessity. After the Great Leap Forward, the Chinese government shifted its focus toward more pragmatic economic policies. Lessons were learned the hard way, leading to changes in agricultural practices and an understanding of the need for a more decentralized approach. The famine prompted a long-term reevaluation of agricultural strategies and policies, which ultimately shaped the course of Chinese economic development in the ensuing decades. Today, the Great Chinese Famine serves as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of extreme ideological pursuits when divorced from practical realities. It highlights the importance of understanding the context of food production, societal cooperation, and governance. The legacy of this tragedy continues to influence discussions on agricultural policy and food security, emphasizing the need for balance between ambition and realism in policymaking. The stories of those who lived through the Great Chinese Famine are vital to understanding the resilience of the human spirit in times of hardship. This period in history demonstrates not only the fragility of life, but also the collective strength found within communities. As lessons continue to be drawn from this tragic chapter, the importance of compassion, humility, and adaptability remains crucial in navigating the complexities of human society and our relationship with the environment. In the 1980s, the United States faced a crisis that would leave an indelible mark on its social fabric and alter the course of countless lives: the crack cocaine epidemic. This period was characterized by a surge in drug use, overwhelming police departments, and igniting widespread violence and social unrest. The emergence of crack cocaine, a powerful and cheaper form of cocaine, became intertwined with the struggles of urban communities, particularly affecting African American neighborhoods. The roots of this crisis can be traced back to the allure of quick profits and the desperate conditions many faced in economically deprived areas. Crack cocaine quickly gained popularity because it was affordable and easy to produce, leading to its explosion in metropolitan cities across America. Small amounts could offer a quick, intense high, making it accessible to a broader range of people. Unfortunately, this accessibility also meant that many vulnerable individuals were drawn into its dangerous grip. As the use of crack soared, so did the rates of violence. Numerous reports during that time described streets turned into battlegrounds, with rival gangs vying for control over lucrative drug markets. This violent turn was not merely a byproduct of drug culture. Instead, it quickly became a humanitarian crisis. Families were torn apart, and neighborhoods were devastated as addiction took hold of communities. Disturbingly, the violence and instability fueled by crack cocaine did not discriminate, affecting the lives of not only users but also innocent bystanders who found themselves caught in the crossfire. Amid the rising chaos, a series of conspiracy theories began to surface. Some speculated that there was government involvement in the drug trade, suggesting that officials turned a blind eye to the growing problem, or were even complicit in fostering it within specific communities. Allegations grew that the drug trade was part of a broader scheme designed to undermine and destabilize marginalized populations. This added another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation, as trust in public institutions started to wane, further isolating affected communities. These conspiracy theories were underscored by events in various parts of the country, leading to widespread disillusionment. Many believed that these social issues were, in part, orchestrated by unseen political forces, prompting protests and calls for justice. Amid this despair, grassroots movements began emerging, with community leaders striving to combat the effects of addiction and violence. Activists initiated programs seeking to provide support and rehabilitation to affected individuals and families, hoping to address the damage caused by the epidemic. As the 1980s progressed, the government took steps toward addressing the crisis, but the measures often reflected a punitive approach rather than a supportive one. The war on drugs intensified, leading to harsher penalties for possession and distribution of crack cocaine compared to powdered cocaine, which was primarily used by wealthier individuals. This discrepancy further fueled racial disparities within the criminal justice system, as predominantly black communities faced disproportionate incarceration rates. Critics argued that this approach did little to resolve the underlying issues driving the epidemic and only worsened community relations with law enforcement. The media also played a role in shaping perceptions of the crack epidemic. News outlets frequently depicted the situation as a moral failing rather than a public health crisis, which entrenched negative stereotypes of drug users and marginalized communities in the collective consciousness. This narrative perpetuated stigma, making it even harder for those grappling with addiction to seek help. As the years progressed into the 1990s, the epidemic began to lessen in visibility, but not in impact. The long-term effects of crack cocaine were felt across America, leaving wounds that would take years, if not decades, to heal. This investment in neighborhoods affected by the epidemic created cycles of poverty and despair that would persist long after drug use began to decline. Community leaders, activists, and affected families worked tirelessly to address the fallout from the epidemic, focusing on rehabilitation, education, and economic revitalization. Their efforts laid the groundwork for future conversations about drug policies, addiction recovery, and the need for comprehensive social support systems. Reflecting on the legacy of the crack cocaine epidemic provides profound insights into the intersection of substance abuse, systemic inequality, and community resilience. It serves as a poignant reminder of the challenges faced by individuals grappling with addiction and the societal implications that extend far beyond the act of drug use itself. Today, discussions about past crises and current public health issues draw parallels, urging society to address substance use with compassion, understanding, and a focus on holistic solutions rather than stigmatization and punitive measures. The stories of those who navigated the tumult of the crack epidemic remind us of the power of human connection, community support, and the continuous challenge of overcoming adversity together. In the heart of Chicago, during the late 19th century, a chilling chapter in the history of crime unfolded, revolving around a man named H. Holmes. He is often recognized as one of America's first serial killers, and his story is intertwined with a unique and sinister creation, a hotel designed not for hospitality, but for murder. This horrendous establishment, commonly referred to as the Murder Castle, was built with dark intentions and alarming ingenuity. Holmes, born Herman Webster Mudgett, was a man of many faces and ambitions. A charming and intelligent individual, he managed to graduate from medical school, using his knowledge in a way that deviated dreadfully from the oath taken by most physicians. After moving to Chicago, he decided to construct a hotel that would later become infamous. The idea started simple enough: a place for visitors to stay during the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, which attracted millions to the city. However, as he planned the structure, his designs grew more elaborate and perverse. The murder castle was built between 1888 and 1891, and every corner of it was crafted to serve his wicked purposes. The building itself was a labyrinthine nightmare with an array of hidden rooms, soundproof chambers, and secret passages. Some rooms had doors that opened into sheer drops or thick walls where victims could be trapped and left to perish. Others featured secret compartments where Holmes could hide bodies. The architecture was chaotic, making it easy for him to confuse and disorient any unsuspecting guest. One of the most horrifying features of the murder castle was its basement. This area was filled with gruesome tools and equipment used for anatomy experiments that were more aligned with his dark interests than legitimate medicine. There are accounts of Holmes having rooms fitted with gas lines that would allow him to incapacitate his victims quickly. Once in his grasp, their fate was often grim. Holmes's method of luring victims was equally disturbing. He was adept at charming women, particularly widows seeking companionship. He would often engage them in conversation, promising them a life filled with excitement and love, and then lead them to his hotel. For men seeking investment opportunities, he had a different tactic. He would present himself as a trustworthy entrepreneur while planning their demise behind closed doors. The psychological manipulation he employed was as chilling as the physical traps he laid out. The fate of the victims remains largely unknown, contributing to the unsettling legacy of the murder castle. However, it is estimated that dozens, if not hundreds, of people may have disappeared within its walls. This dark chapter invites speculation and curiosity from historians and true crime enthusiasts alike. Some believe that Holmes's actions were nothing short of a hunt, a monstrous game where he reveled in the suffering and despair of his victims. As news of the various disappearances began to surface, suspicions over Holmes grew. His operations began to crumble when a business partner's wife vanished, leading investigators to probe deeper into his affairs. The authorities eventually discovered the sad truth behind the facade, but not before Holmes had escaped to continue his twisted path elsewhere. Eventually, he was apprehended and tried for his crimes in 1895, but not before the true horrors of the murder castle came to light. The destruction of the murder castle came in 1896, when it was largely consumed by fire, an event surrounded by mystery and speculation. Some say Holmes orchestrated it to destroy evidence of his crimes, while others believe it was a mere accident. Nevertheless, the building was later demolished, its dark legacy living on only through tales and documentation of the heinous acts committed within its walls. To this day, the story of H. Holmes and his murder castle serves as a fascinating yet grim reminder of the potential for darkness hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. It feeds our innate curiosity about the macabre and challenges our perceptions of good and evil. The sheer creativity and malevolence behind Holmes's design illustrates not just a deeply disturbed mind, but also a unique historical moment when the boundaries of humanity and horror became alarmingly blurred. As time marches on, the murder castle and its infamous architect captivate the imaginations of people everywhere, from historians to horror enthusiasts. The echoes of history resonate, expressing the timeless struggle of light against darkness. Thus, long after the castle itself has turned to dust, the chilling possibilities of human nature continue to shed light on the hidden shadows within our own lives. As we explore these dark corners, we must never forget the lessons they teach about trust, betrayal, and the capacity for malevolence that can lie beneath a polished exterior. Project MK-NAOMI is an intriguing chapter in the history of covert military operations and secret government projects. It was developed by the United States during the Cold War, a time when the tension between world powers was palpable and the race for military superiority was fierce. This secret initiative was part of a broader effort by the CIA to develop advanced methods of warfare that included chemical weapons and biological agents. The origins of MK-NAOMI are intertwined with Project MKUltra, which aimed to explore psychological manipulation and mind control. While MKUltra focused primarily on human behavior and control, MK-NAOMI took a different approach, aiming instead at developing tools for clandestine warfare. What set MK-NAOMI apart was its emphasis on biological and chemical agents that could be deployed covertly against enemy targets. The project involved the use of a wide range of substances, including viruses and bacteria, that could be weaponized. The goal was to create agents that could incapacitate, destroy, or otherwise neutralize opponents without overt military engagement. The idea was to gain a strategic advantage while maintaining deniability regarding the use of such weapons. This covert tactic was not unique to the United States. Various countries during this period were exploring similar methodologies in hopes of enhancing their military capabilities. One of the fascinating aspects of MK-NAOMI was its integration with other military and intelligence programs. This interconnectedness allowed researchers and agents to share findings and improve upon existing chemical and biological warfare technologies. Imagine teams of scientists working diligently in labs, synthesizing new compounds and testing them under various conditions, developing ever more effective agents that could serve military objectives. Although many details about the operations conducted under MK-NAOMI remain classified, it is known that the project drew from extensive research in microbiology and toxicology, paving the way for the potential creation of highly effective agents. Scientists engaged in this project explored existing pathogens, assessing their potential use in military actions. Through rigorous testing, they aimed to find effective ways to deploy these agents in a manner that minimized detection and maximized impact. One significant concern during the development of MK-NAOMI was the ethical implications of employing chemical and biological agents. The potential for collateral damage and unintended consequences was a pressing issue that prompted debates within the government and military. Shifts in public sentiment and growing awareness of the dangers surrounding biowarfare further complicated the landscape, pushing operatives to reconsider the thresholds of safety and morality. Despite the risks, the desire for a tactical edge meant that projects like MK-NAOMI continued to receive funding and attention. The methods investigated through this initiative reflected a broader military strategy that prioritized innovation and secrecy. It was a time when governments were grappling with the capabilities of their opposing forces, and covert operations were seen as critical to maintaining national security. As the years progressed, the knowledge gained from MK-NAOMI contributed to strategies employed by military and intelligence agencies in various global conflicts. The legacy of this project highlights the intricate dance between discovery and ethics, and showcases the lengths to which nations will go in pursuit of security and dominance. Today, we look back on projects like MK-NAOMI with a mix of fascination and concern. The knowledge that flowed from such initiatives has undoubtedly shaped modern military practices and the broader understanding of biological and chemical agents. The importance of ethical considerations continues to resonate, influencing current discussions around warfare and the responsibilities of nations on the global stage. As the world advances and technology evolves, the lessons learned from projects like MK-NAOMI serve as a reminder of the delicate balance between innovation and accountability. The implications of these covert programs extend beyond their immediate military applications, affecting discussions around public health, safety, and international law. Understanding MK-NAOMI not only offers insight into a singular program, but also opens a window into the complexities and consequences linked to military experimentation. It encourages us to think critically about past decisions and to remain vigilant about protecting the future, ensuring that the pursuit of knowledge serves the betterment of humanity rather than its detriment. In unraveling the stories of these covert projects, we can reflect on the past while guiding future endeavors toward transparency and ethical responsibility. Ultimately, MK-NAOMI is a testament to the intricacies of warfare, a narrative woven with ambition, secrecy, and the pursuit of power in the shadowy realms of military strategy. It stands as a crucial part of our understanding of how far countries will go in the name of security and dominance, a cautionary tale for future generations as they navigate the challenging landscape of international relations and warfare. In the heart of New York City in the early 20th century, a major event unfolded that would change the landscape of workplace safety forever. This incident, known as the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, took place on March 25, 1911, and it left an indelible mark on American labor history. The Triangle Waste Company was situated on the top 3 floors of a 10-story loft building, a bustling hub for garment workers, most of whom were young immigrant women. They worked long hours under difficult conditions, earning meager wages for their efforts. The factory produced women's blouses, or shirtwaists, which were immensely popular at the time. While the demand for their products was high, the working conditions within the factory were often perilous, and the workers were subjected to overwhelming pressure to meet production quotas. On that fateful Saturday afternoon, a fire broke out on the top floor of the building. It is believed to have started with a discarded cigarette igniting fabric scraps. In a matter of minutes, the flames spread rapidly, fueled by the highly flammable materials that surrounded the workers. Panic surged as the realization of the danger set in. In a factory where exits were often locked to prevent theft and minimize breaks, the workers found themselves trapped. The doors did not open outward, making it nearly impossible for the workers, many of whom were young girls, to escape. The men and women who managed to reach the stairwell were met with a heart-wrenching scene. Thick smoke filled the air, and the stairwells became overcrowded and chaotic. Many others sought refuge on the roof, desperate to avoid the flames consuming the factory. Bravely, some individuals tried to rescue their co-workers, risking their lives to save others. Firefighters arrived on the scene quickly but faced tremendous challenges. They were equipped with ladder trucks that could only reach the 6th floor, unable to help those trapped higher up. The situation was dire, and amid the chaos, heroes emerged, even as others succumbed to the inferno. In total, 146 workers lost their lives that day, making it one of the deadliest workplace disasters in American history. The tragedy exposed the appalling working conditions and lack of safety regulations in factories across the nation. The aftermath led to public outrage, which ignited a demand for change. Advocacy for labor rights and workplace safety grew stronger, with many realizing that reforms were desperately needed. The fire led to significant changes in labor laws, with activists advocating for safer working conditions and better pay. In the months following the tragedy, New York State established a factory investigating commission and began to introduce new safety regulations. This included requirements for fire drills, better ventilation, and the creation of emergency exit routes. Building codes were reevaluated, and many of the changes implemented would serve as a model for labor reforms across the United States. The Triangle Shirtwaist Fire sparked a movement that sought justice for those who could not escape. The memories of the lost lives pushed labor organizers and social reformers to fight for workers' rights more vigorously. As awareness grew, public opinion began to shift towards advocating for labor reform to ensure that workers would not have to endure the same fate. The legacy of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire can still be felt today. Advocates for workers' rights continue to remind us of the importance of safety in the workplace. Organizations strive to keep workers safe and hold employers accountable for creating a secure and supportive work environment. The impacts of this tragic event resonate in modern labor laws, influencing regulations that protect workers in various industries. In remembering the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, we honor the lives lost and recognize the continued journey toward equality and safety in the workplace. The event serves as a powerful reminder that tragic events can lead to positive change, and it encourages us to reflect on how far labor rights have come while recognizing that there is still work to be done. As we think of the brave individuals who fought for their and others' lives that day, we commit ourselves to promoting a safe work environment for everyone, ensuring that such a tragedy never occurs again. By remembering our history, we celebrate the strength of those who stood up for their rights. In doing so, we can help shape a future where safety and dignity are paramount for every worker, regardless of their industry or location. The story of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire reminds us that together, change is possible, and we all have a role to play in ensuring the well-being of those who work around us. Project Artichoke was a covert operation initiated by the Central Intelligence Agency during the 1950s. This project was part of a broader interest in exploring methods for interrogation and mind control, which were seen as vital tools in the context of Cold War tensions. As the United States faced the growing threat of communism and other adversarial influences, the CIA sought to develop strategies that could extract information from unwilling subjects effectively. The name Artichoke was given to this program, which was actually a code name, and it drew from a range of techniques that had been under consideration by the agency. The primary focus was on the use of drugs, hypnosis, and various psychological methods that promised to alter a person's mental state or behavior during interrogation. The CIA was particularly interested in discovering whether these methods could help gain critical intelligence without resorting to physical torture. One of the most intriguing dimensions of Project Artichoke involved the exploration of psychoactive substances. The agency's researchers experimented with a variety of drugs, hoping to identify substances that could influence the human mind. Among these substances was the hallucinogen known as LSD, which had recently captured the imagination of both the scientific community and the public alike. The thinking behind this was that certain drugs might make individuals more susceptible to suggestion or confession. The scientists and operatives involved in Project Artichoke were not only looking at how drugs could be used in isolation, but also how they could be combined with psychological techniques. For instance, they investigated the use of hypnosis as a way to augment the information gleaned from drug-induced states. The idea was to create an environment in which a subject would be less likely to resist and more inclined to divulge valuable information. The combination of drug administration and hypnotic suggestion was a focal point for many in the program. Another significant factor was the investigation into trauma and its effects on the human psyche. Various techniques were considered to induce psychological stress or trauma to make subjects more pliable. This raised ethical questions that, even at the time, sparked debates among professionals in psychology and medicine. Nonetheless, the agency delved deeper into these uncharted territories, exercising a sense of urgency that reflected the fears of the era. The implications of Project Artichoke were far-reaching. The program contributed to broader efforts within the CIA to understand not only interrogation, but also the manipulation of consciousness itself. It marked a period in which scientific research and national security intersected in sometimes troubling ways. The allure of mind control, however elusive, seemed to promise a kind of power that was unprecedented. While the project never achieved the control and effectiveness that its proponents envisioned, it laid the groundwork for subsequent programs, including MK-Ultra, which sought to expand on the ideas and techniques developed during the Artichoke Initiative. MK-Ultra was infamous for its more ethically questionable experiments, underscoring a willingness to explore the darker sides of human psychology in the name of security. As years passed, the revelations about Project Artichoke and its successor programs stirred debates in public discourse, raising questions about ethics, consent, and the limits of governmental power. The post-war world was shaped not only by geopolitical conflict, but also by these behind-the-scenes efforts to take hold of the human mind. The morality of such actions has been scrutinized, and the historical account of these programs serves as a reflection on the lengths to which agencies may go when faced with existential threats. In hindsight, Project Artichoke is a fascinating, albeit chilling, chapter in the history of intelligence operations. Its legacy reminds us of the intricate relationship between psychological exploration and national security strategies. The ethical considerations and potential consequences of manipulating human consciousness continue to resonate today as advancements in neuroscience and psychology push the boundaries of what we know about the mind. As we navigate through this complex history, it becomes clear that the quest to control the human mind is fraught with danger, not just for the subjects of these experiments, but for the societies that engage in such practices. This narrative continues to unfold as we grapple with the implications of past experiments, urging us to reflect on the intersections of ethics, power, and the human experience. In a world where knowledge and power are inextricably linked, understanding the motivations, goals, and consequences of projects like Artichoke becomes essential for recognizing how far we have come and how far we still need to go in the pursuit of ethical governance and humane treatment in all aspects of life. The history of Project Artichoke thus serves as an important lesson in the ongoing discourse surrounding the use of authority and control, making it a significant topic for deeper reflection and understanding. Operation Gladio is a fascinating and often controversial topic that explores the intersection of Cold War politics, covert military strategies, and the dynamics of European security in the aftermath of World War II. This operation, which emerged from NATO's efforts to counter the perceived threat of Soviet expansion in Western Europe, involved the establishment of secret armies and clandestine networks. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, as Europe was recovering from the devastation of the Second World War, a heightened sense of vulnerability emerged. Political instability, economic hardship, and the looming presence of communism made many Western leaders increasingly anxious about the stability of their nations. To address these concerns, a strategy called the Stay-Behind Operation was developed. This strategy aimed to prepare for a potential Soviet invasion and to ensure that in the event of occupation, there would be organized resistance networks ready to mobilize. NATO, with the support of the CIA and other intelligence agencies, initiated Operation Gladio as part of this broader strategy. In various countries across Western Europe, including Italy, Belgium, and Germany, secret military units were established, often made up of former soldiers and resistance fighters. These units were trained in guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and intelligence gathering, creating a shadowy framework of defense against potential communist takeover. The idea was that these clandestine networks could operate undetected, maintaining a level of preparedness and resilience. One notable aspect of Operation Gladio is its relationship with national governments. In some instances, these secret armies operated with the knowledge and consent of political leaders. In others, they existed as a covert presence, largely hidden from public scrutiny. This ambiguity led to complex legal and ethical questions surrounding accountability. Who controlled these secret forces? Were democratic principles being undermined in the name of national security? As time passed, the presence of these covert networks was often linked to various political events and controversies. Accusations emerged that Operation Gladio might have been involved in orchestrating false flag operations, secret actions designed to mislead the public or manipulate political circumstances. For example, some believe that these secret networks may have sought to create chaos or instability as a means to justify suppression of leftist movements, reinforcing the idea that communism posed an imminent threat. The most notable case tied to Operation Gladio occurred in Italy during the so-called Years of Lead, a period characterized by political violence and domestic terrorism in the 1970s and 1980s. Some theorists contend that Gladio operatives may have been involved in attacks or events designed to provoke fear and foster a climate of crisis, ultimately leading to a conservative shift in political power. This has fueled ongoing debates about the extent of Gladio's involvement in Italian politics and the ethical implications of such operations. The revelation of Operation Gladio and its secrets sparked significant public interest and concern in the 1990s, especially after investigative journalists and researchers began to uncover details of these covert military operations. The concept of stay-behind armies raised alarm bells as the public grappled with the idea that their governments had authorized subversive actions in the name of security. Documented instances of political assassinations and bombings linked to these secretive groups further complicated the narrative. Scholars and historians continue to dissect these events to understand their implications on contemporary geopolitics. The legacy of Operation Gladio raises essential questions about the balance between security and civil liberties. As social landscapes evolved, so did the tactics employed by these clandestine networks, but the overarching themes of fear, manipulation, and control remain relevant. One compelling aspect of this story is the array of responses from the countries involved. Some nations opened up investigations to address public outcry, leading to political reforms and changes in military oversight. Others clung to secrecy, continuing to deny or downplay the existence and activities of these secret armies. The divergence in transparency reflects broader differences in national attitudes toward security, sovereignty, and the role of military forces in a democratic society. In today's context, the narrative of secrecy and covert operations continues to resonate, particularly as discussions about surveillance, intelligence, and state power are increasingly prominent in public discourse. The balance of power between governments and their citizens continues to be a dynamic tension, reminding us of the importance of oversight and accountability in any democratic framework. As we reflect on the historical significance of Operation Gladio, we are reminded that the implications of secret operations can stretch far beyond their original intent. They serve as a reminder of the delicate fabric that weaves together the pursuit of security with the principles of freedom and democracy. Understanding this complex interplay invites us to thoughtfully consider the lessons of history as we navigate the evolving landscape of contemporary politics. One can only wonder about the stories that remain untold and the shadows that may still linger in the corridors of power. The legacy of such operations underscores the need for vigilance, accountability, and transparent governance as societies strive to safeguard their democratic ideals against the ever-present challenges of fear and division. The story of Operation Gladio thus remains a critical chapter in the narrative of modern European history, illustrating the lengths to which nations might go in the name of security and the prices they may unwittingly pay in the pursuit of stability. In the vibrant tapestry of our planet's ecosystems, honeybees play an essential role that often goes unnoticed. These tiny creatures, appearing frail and insignificant to some, are actually the unsung heroes of the agricultural world. Their tireless efforts in pollination are fundamental not just for the survival of many plants, but also for the production of our food. However, in recent years, a troubling phenomenon known as colony collapse disorder has emerged, threatening global bee populations and, consequently, our agricultural systems. Colony collapse disorder, or CCD, is characterized by the rapid loss of worker bees from a colony. Imagine a bustling city that suddenly finds itself nearly deserted overnight. The few remaining bees are left with the daunting task of keeping the colony alive. This mysterious occurrence has been puzzling scientists and beekeepers alike, with no single cause pinpointed. Instead, CCD appears to be the result of a complex interplay of factors, much like an intricate dance, with each element affecting the others. Several culprits have been suggested in this devastating puzzle. Pesticides, specifically neonicotinoids, have raised alarms in recent years. These chemicals, designed to protect crops from pests, may inadvertently harm honeybees as well. Studies have shown that even low levels of pesticide exposure can impair a bee's ability to navigate, forage, and communicate with the rest of the hive. Imagine venturing out into a vast landscape with a map that keeps changing. This is the chaotic reality for a bee exposed to harmful chemicals. Another concern is the role of parasites, particularly the Varroa destructor mite. This tiny pest latches onto bees, feeding on their bodily fluids and weakening their health. It's comparable to a relentless thief gradually draining the vitality from a bustling community. With weakened immune systems, bees become more susceptible to various diseases, further compounding the challenges they face. The battle against such invaders requires beekeepers to be ever vigilant, implementing strategies to protect their colonies from becoming overwhelmed. Climate change also plays a significant role in the plight of honeybees. As temperatures rise and weather patterns shift, the flowering times of plants and the availability of resources become erratic. Many plants rely on specific temperatures and conditions to bloom, and when these cues are disrupted, bees may find it increasingly difficult to locate food sources. This is much like a preferred restaurant changing its hours unexpectedly. Eating can become a challenge, and the once abundant buffet of flowers can dwindle, leaving bees searching in vain. The implications of the declining honeybee population are vast and far-reaching. Approximately 1/3 of the foods we consume rely on pollination, including many fruits, vegetables, and nuts. The economic impact alone is staggering. The contribution of bees to global crop production is estimated to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Without healthy bee populations, we could face increased food scarcity and skyrocketing prices, fundamentally altering the way we eat. Interestingly, studies show that warmer weather in some regions can initially benefit honeybee populations, promoting growth and reproduction. However, this advantage is often short-lived, as the long-term effects of climate change lead to harsher conditions. Bee health does not simply hinge on temperature. It necessitates a balance of factors that support their survival. Thus, finding sustained solutions requires a multidisciplinary approach, bringing together scientists, farmers, and policymakers. So what can be done to support our buzzing allies? One effective strategy is fostering habitats that promote bee health. Consider planting native flowers in gardens and public spaces, creating a buffet of options for bees throughout the blooming season. Reducing or eliminating pesticide use can significantly lower harmful exposures. Every small effort contributes to building a more hospitable environment for bees to thrive. Beekeeping has also gained popularity, with individuals taking up the practice in urban and rural settings alike. By maintaining hives, beekeepers can provide essential care, while also gaining a deeper understanding of these remarkable insects. Engaging in local initiatives aimed at bee conservation can amplify collective efforts. Many communities have started programs to plant bee-friendly gardens and educate residents about the importance of these pollinators. Awareness and education are critical components of this movement. Understanding the complexities of bee health equips everyone with the knowledge needed to make informed decisions. As we marvel at the world around us, we must not overlook the tiny beings that play such a pivotal role in sustaining our ecosystems. Honeybees are more than just honeymakers. They are vital links in the web of life that supports food production and biodiversity. The challenges they face remind us of the interconnectedness of our existence and the responsibility we bear to protect such delicate relationships. In the quest for a healthier planet, every blossom and every bee plays a part, echoing a simple truth. The future of our food system may well depend on the well-being of these remarkable little creatures. By nurturing their populations and advocating for their health, we take meaningful steps towards a more sustainable future for all. Embracing this knowledge allows us to join the ongoing efforts to preserve these vital insects, thus ensuring that their buzzing continues to enrich our lives, landscapes, and economies for generations to come. In the late 1970s, Cambodia experienced one of the most tragic episodes in human history under the brutal regime of the Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot. The period from 1975 to 1979 is marked by extreme violence, cruelty, and a systematic effort to reshape society according to a radical communist ideology. The Khmer Rouge came to power on April 17, 1975, seizing control of the capital city, Phnom Penh. Their rise to power was fueled by years of civil conflict and a promise to create an agrarian utopia. However, their vision led to unimaginable suffering. The regime sought to eradicate all traces of modern society, including education, religion, and personal freedoms. Their slogan, "To keep you is no benefit. To destroy you is no loss," exemplifies their extreme disregard for human life. Once in power, the Khmer Rouge began an aggressive campaign to relocate urban populations to the countryside. People were forced from their homes under the guise of returning to a simpler, agrarian lifestyle. Men, women, and children left behind their lives in the city, often with little to no possessions. The regime believed that by emptying cities and dismantling urban infrastructure, they could eliminate sources of potential dissent and authority, which they viewed as threats to their control. The conditions in the rural areas quickly became brutal. Those who resisted or were suspected of being enemies of the state faced severe punishment. Villagers were subjected to intense labor, working long hours in harsh conditions with minimal food and inadequate shelter. The Khmer Rouge implemented a policy of collectivization, banning private property and forcing individuals to work in communal rice fields. This shift led to massive food shortages, malnutrition, and countless deaths. The regime targeted not just perceived enemies, but also intellectuals, professionals, religious leaders, and anyone with an education. Glasses were seen as a sign of intelligence, and those wearing them were often executed or sent to forced labor camps. The atmosphere of fear and paranoia permeated society. Neighbors turned against each other, and families were torn apart as people were denounced and taken away without explanation. The killing fields are perhaps the most haunting symbol of the atrocities committed during this time. Throughout Cambodia, thousands of mass graves are spread across the countryside, marking the final resting places of those who lost their lives to the regime's violence. The most notorious site, Chong Ek, in the outskirts of Phnom Penh, has become a memorial and a reminder of the brutal realities of this dark period. Visitors to the killing fields can see the remnants of the past, including the large stupa filled with human skulls, representing just a fraction of the lives lost. Estimates suggest that between 1 and 2 million people perished during the Khmer Rouge era, a staggering number in a nation of approximately 8 million. Many succumbed to starvation, while others were executed in mass killings or died from diseases due to the lack of medical care and poor living conditions. The regime's policies led to a significant decline in the population, and the psychological impact on survivors is profound and enduring. The international community largely stood by during this horrifying time. The Cold War dynamics meant that the Khmer Rouge, despite their atrocities, were sometimes seen as a counterbalance to Vietnamese influence in the region. It wasn't until after the fall of the regime in 1979, when Vietnam invaded Cambodia, that the world began to grasp the scale of the horrors that had unfolded. In the years following the Khmer Rouge's downfall, Cambodia struggled with the aftermath of the genocide. The nation faced the immense challenge of rebuilding itself while confronting a painful legacy. Trials were established to hold key figures accountable for their crimes, but the healing process is ongoing. Many survivors carry their trauma with them, while new generations are tasked with understanding this painful history. Today, education about the Khmer Rouge has become crucial, not just for Cambodia, but for the world. The history reminds us of the fragility of human rights and the importance of vigilance against tyranny. The killing fields serve as sites of remembrance and reflection, ensuring that the voices of the millions who suffered are never forgotten. Exploring this dark chapter of history helps us appreciate the importance of compassion, understanding, and respect for human life. The story of the Khmer Rouge serves as a warning of what can happen when hatred, ideology, and power converge unchecked. In learning from the past, we can strive for a future where such horrors are prevented, fostering a world where kindness and peace prevail. In 1994, the world witnessed one of the most horrific events in recent history, the Rwandan Genocide. This tragic chapter unfolded over a span of just 100 days, from April to July, and it left an indelible mark on the nation and the world. The genocide is a stark reminder of the consequences of hatred and division, rooted deeply in ethnic conflict and political turmoil. Rwanda, a small landlocked country in East Africa, is home to two main ethnic groups, the Hutu and the Tutsi. Historically, these groups coexisted, but also harbored underlying tensions that were often exacerbated by colonial influences and power struggles. During the colonial era, Belgian rulers favored the Tutsi minority over the Hutu majority, which sowed seeds of resentment. As Rwanda gained independence in 1962, the power dynamics began to shift, leading to escalating tensions and violence. By the early 1990s, these tensions had transformed into a full-blown conflict. The Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, composed primarily of Tutsis who had fled the country during previous persecutions, waged a civil war against the Hutu-led government. This conflict polarized the population, feeding into fears, paranoia, and a dangerous propaganda narrative. Rwandan radio stations broadcast messages inciting violence and hatred toward the Tutsi population, referring to them as cockroaches that needed to be exterminated. In April 1994, the assassination of Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu, triggered a rapid and brutal descent into chaos. Hutu extremists launched a coordinated campaign against Tutsis and moderate Hutus. In the face of this violence, the international community largely turned a blind eye. While some nations offered limited support, many influential countries, including the United States and members of the United Nations, hesitated to intervene decisively. As the genocide unfolded, the scale of the atrocities was staggering. Over the course of these 100 days, it is estimated that approximately 800,000 Tutsi and moderate Hutu were killed. Machetes became notorious as weapons of choice for the killing squads. Neighbors turned on neighbors, friends became enemies, and entire families were wiped out in horrifying circumstances. Throughout Rwanda, makeshift roadblocks were established where Hutu militia members would stop vehicles, checking identification cards to identify and execute those deemed Tutsi. People sought refuge wherever they could, often in churches, where they mistakenly believed they would be safe. Tragically, these sanctuaries also became scenes of mass killings, as armed groups invaded, leading to unimaginable horrors. Amid this dark period, instances of extraordinary courage and resilience emerged. Some individuals risked their lives to shield their fellow citizens from imminent danger. Hutu civilians defied the orders of the genocidal government and protected Tutsis, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for kindness in the face of overwhelming evil. As the genocide drew to a close, the RPF gained control of the country and the mass killing ceased. However, the ramifications of these events left deep scars in Rwandan society. Survivors were left to grapple with unspeakable trauma, loss, and the challenge of rebuilding their lives. Communities were fractured, and the path to reconciliation was arduous. In the aftermath, the Rwandan government sought to bring justice in various forms, including the establishment of Gatsaka courts. These community-based courts aimed to address crimes committed during the genocide, allowing survivors and perpetrators to confront their past collectively. While the process was met with some skepticism, it marked an effort to foster healing in a deeply wounded society. Rwanda's journey since the genocide has been one of remarkable transformation. The country has invested heavily in economic development, education, and infrastructure. Today, it stands as a testament to resilience, demonstrating how a nation can rise from the ashes of despair and cultivate a future based on unity and progress. Internationally, the Rwandan genocide serves as a cautionary tale about the need for vigilance against hatred and the importance of timely intervention to prevent atrocities. It has sparked discussions about the responsibility of nations to protect vulnerable populations and the imperative role of education in promoting tolerance and understanding. As we reflect on this tragic event, it becomes evident that memories must be preserved. Commemorating the lives lost and honoring the courage of survivors ensures that the lessons of the past are not forgotten. The Rwandan genocide, while a profound tragedy, also signals a call to action, urging all of us to stand against hatred and strive for a world where peace and solidarity prevail. In the annals of history, there are tales that seem almost too bizarre to be true. One of these remarkable stories involves a peculiar conflict that occurred in Australia during the early 20th century, popularly referred to as the Great Emu War of 1932. It is a unique chapter that highlights the clash of humans against nature in an extraordinary way. Following World War I, many Australian soldiers returned home and were provided with land grants to foster a new agricultural life. As these veterans transitioned into farming, they faced unforeseen challenges. By the late 1920s, large populations of emus, a large, flightless bird native to Australia, emerged as a substantial threat to their crops. Escaping from a drought-stricken inland area, these birds flocked to the agricultural regions of Western Australia, drawn in by the promise of plentiful wheat. The emus, which can reach up to 6 feet in height and weigh as much as 150 pounds, are not only formidable in size, but also surprisingly agile. As they descended upon the crops, they wreaked havoc. Farmers found their fields devastated, leading to frustration and anger. Many struggled to maintain their livelihoods, while the emus seemed determined to feast on their hard work. As reports of the emu problem spread, it became clear that this was more than just a minor nuisance. It was a significant agricultural crisis. In response to this growing concern, the Australian government decided to intervene with a military campaign. In November 1932, 2 soldiers, Major G.P.W. Meredith and his men, were tasked with addressing the emu invasion. The operation was equipped with machine guns, and it was imagined that this would be a straightforward endeavor. After all, how difficult could it be to manage a few large birds? Upon arrival, the soldiers quickly realized that their task was not as simple as they had anticipated. The emus proved to be elusive and surprisingly clever in their tactics. When the soldiers set up for the operations, the emus often scattered in every direction, making it difficult to target them effectively. In addition, the birds moved in groups, and their speed and agility allowed them to escape before the soldiers could mount an attack. The first few attempts at capturing the emus were met with little success. The soldiers would take aim, and just as they squeezed the trigger, the birds would rapidly scatter. On one occasion, the men managed to kill a handful of emus, but even that success was short-lived, as the bulk of the flock quickly evaded them. It became evident that the emus were adapting to the tactics used against them, bouncing back into the safety of the bush whenever danger approached. Despite the escalating frustrations, the military persisted. Over the course of several weeks, the soldiers conducted numerous operations, but the results remained disheartening. Reports indicated that, while the number of emus met their end, the total count was far less than the government had intended. Soldiers returned with tales of their bafflement, explaining how, time and again, their targets adeptly evaded their grasp. The campaign dragged on, revealing just how underestimated the emus had been. The opposition of humans against these birds turned out to be a true testament of nature's unpredictable resilience. The small farming communities, while desperate for a solution, slowly began to understand that conventional military measures would not suffice in this unconventional scenario. As frustrations mounted and the lack of tangible success became apparent, the government finally called an end to the campaign. By December 1932, the military withdrew, acknowledging defeat against the emus. The farmers were left to contend with their tenacious adversaries as they tried to salvage their crops and livelihoods. The Great Emu War became a lasting story, illustrating not just a unique episode of history, but also highlighting the unexpected challenges faced by those who strive to coexist with nature. Over time, the saga of the Great Emu War has morphed into a humorous tale, often recounted with a sense of irony. It serves as a reminder that sometimes nature cannot be fought with force. Rather, it requires understanding and cooperation. As we look back at this unusual conflict, we remember how these majestic birds effortlessly evaded human strategies, carving their place into the heart of Australian folklore. Not only does this story reveal the resilience of emus, but it also underscores the importance of finding innovative solutions to coexistence. The tale invites contemplation on humanity's relationship with wildlife and the challenges of protecting agricultural lands. In the end, the Great Emu War is an enduring legend that brings a smile to many faces, reminding us all that sometimes nature has a way of getting the last laugh. In November of 1974, an event unfolded in Amityville, New York, that would grip the nation's imagination and give birth to one of the most famous tales of horror in American history. This story begins on the night of November 13th, when 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. committed a heinous act, shooting and killing 6 members of his family in their home on Ocean Avenue. The details of the murders were shocking and gruesome, leaving the small community in disbelief and horror. The DeFeo family was well known in Amityville, and their sudden, violent end sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. Ronald was arrested shortly after, claiming that voices in the house had urged him to carry out these horrendous actions. His trial captivated the public, and as he was convicted, the home became steeped in mystery and intrigue. It was the beginning of a phenomenon that would intertwine the house with tales of the supernatural and hauntings. Just over a year later, the house was purchased by George and Kathy Lutz, who moved in with their 3 children. They were aware of the tragic history of the house, but believed they could create a happy home despite it. However, their experience soon took a disturbing turn. The family reported strange occurrences almost immediately after moving in. Doors slammed shut on their own. Cold spots appeared throughout the house, and they felt an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to permeate the very walls. The children experienced nightmares and strange visions, while George and Kathy reported feeling an unshakable presence. Shadowy figures were said to lurk in corners, and the family felt they were never truly alone. One night, Kathy found herself pulled from her bed by an unseen force, a frightful encounter that left her shaken to the core. These incidents escalated to such a point that they decided to leave after just 28 days of living in the home. Their escape from Amityville was met with skepticism, but it also sparked a tide of interest in the house's dark history. George and Kathy shared their ordeal with the media, which turned into a sensational saga. Their story caught the attention of writers and filmmakers, leading to a series of books and movies that brought the legend of the Amityville Horror to life on the screen. As the legend grew, it was often debated whether the supernatural events were genuine or the manifestations of psychological distress. Skeptics pointed out inconsistencies in the Lutz's story, suggesting that the couple had exaggerated or fabricated their experiences for fame. Meanwhile, paranormal enthusiasts pointed to the chilling details reported by the family as evidence of the spirits lingering in the home. The Amityville Horror became a cultural touchstone, spawning sequels, documentaries, and even a remake of the original film. The tales woven from the accounts of the Lutz family continue to mesmerize audiences, blending elements of true crime with the otherworldly. It opened discussions about the world of ghosts, hauntings, and what lies beyond our understanding. The house itself has become a beacon for the curious, drawing visitors from all over the world, eager to witness its haunted reputation firsthand. Many have felt drawn to the location, hoping to catch a glimpse of the eerie phenomena described by those who live there. The residents of Amityville, however, often express discomfort about the ongoing fascination with the house and its tragic past, recognizing that the events have turned their small town into a tourist attraction. Over the years, the home has changed owners several times, and each new occupant has left with their own set of experiences, whether they align with the chilling accounts of the past or not. Some claim the house has a lingering heaviness, while others insist they experienced nothing out of the ordinary. The differing testimonies add to the lingering enigma surrounding the Amityville Horror, and keep it alive in our collective memory. In popular culture, the tale has inspired a myriad of interpretations, from documentaries that attempt to uncover the truth, to dramatizations that heighten the horror elements for entertainment. The blend of fact and fiction continues to fascinate audiences, creating a modern folklore that is handed down through generations. Discussions around the events and the motivations behind the Lutz's experiences invite people to think deeply about the nature of fear, belief, and the unknown. Ultimately, the story of the Amityville Horror reminds us of the power of narrative, how, through storytelling, we confront our fears and uncover layers of mystery that exist in our world. The history of the house serves as a cautionary tale about tragedy, loss, and the enduring human fascination with that which we cannot see. Whether the frightening occurrences were real or simply a manifestation of human emotions, the legend continues to stir the imagination, allowing people to explore the thin veil between this world and the next. As we delve into this chilling tale, we find that it encapsulates not just the terror that can dwell within 4 walls, but also the legacy of a community forever altered by tragedy. The Amityville Horror stands as a compelling intersection of crime and the supernatural, a reminder that some stories linger far beyond their origins, whispered through generations of curious minds. The Roswell Incident, which took place in the summer of 1947, is one of the most talked about events in modern history, often fueling conversations around UFOs and government secrecy. This incident began in a small town in New Mexico, where something from the sky made headlines and has intrigued the world ever since. In early July of 1947, a rancher named Mac Brazel discovered debris scattered across his land about 75 miles from Roswell. At first, Brazel thought it might have been a downed weather balloon. The military was quick to respond, and the situation caught public attention when the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release claiming they had recovered a quote, flying disc. This announcement sent shockwaves through the media. However, just a day later, the narrative changed dramatically. The Pentagon swiftly stepped in, declaring that what had been recovered was merely a weather balloon and not any alien spacecraft. This sudden shift in the story raised eyebrows and led many to speculate whether the government was hiding something more sensational. As days turned into weeks, conspiracy theories began to swirl around the Roswell incident. People began to wonder if the military was indeed covering up the recovery of an extraterrestrial vehicle, and if they had even captured alien beings. This idea was fueled further by rumored eyewitness accounts claiming to have seen strange materials and unusual creatures. Over the years, numerous alleged witnesses emerged, some claiming to have seen a spacecraft up close or to have interacted with beings from another world. The Roswell incident set off a flurry of interest in all things UFO-related. Books, documentaries, and television shows began to explore not just Roswell, but the broader implications of potential alien life. People started to connect other incidents of strange sightings with Roswell, creating what is now a sprawling tapestry of UFO folklore. What makes the Roswell case particularly fascinating is how it intertwines with the psychology of the post-World War II era. The world was in the midst of the Cold War, with heightened fears of secrecy around government activities and technology. This created a fertile ground for conspiracy theories to thrive. The very notion of an alien spacecraft crashing in the desert tapped into broader themes of fear of the unknown and distrust of authority. The government's retraction of the initial statement only stoked the flames of suspicion. Many theorists proposed that the military was engaged in a grander effort to study alien technology while simultaneously trying to control the narrative surrounding it. This led to other stories, such as those around Area 51, a highly classified U.S. military base in Nevada, where it was rumored more advanced alien crafts were being stored. In the ensuing decades, Roswell became synonymous with UFO culture and sparked debates about the likelihood of alien life. Not only did it foster a community of enthusiasts, but it also led to serious discussions among scientists and researchers. People began to consider what it would mean if we were not alone in the universe. The search for planets outside our solar system and studies in astrobiology became more prominent, fueling the interest in what life beyond Earth might look like. Even Hollywood took notice. Movies and television shows began to depict aliens, abductions, and government conspiracies, reinforcing the narrative that began in Roswell. The imagery of mysterious crafts, strange lights in the sky, and shadowy government figures is now a staple of popular culture. This has helped maintain public interest in UFOs, with many people holding on to the belief that the truth is out there, waiting to be uncovered. As recently as the past few years, the U.S. government has released information regarding unexplained aerial phenomena, with some even confirming military engagements with unknown objects. These admissions continue to generate excitement and renew interest in the original Roswell incident, as people wonder if perhaps it was just the beginning of humanity's journey to understanding the universe. The Roswell incident serves not only as a case of a potential extraterrestrial encounter, but also as a reflection of humanity's desire to explore the unknown. It encapsulates our fear of being observed, our curiosity about life beyond our planet, and the ever-present tension between transparency and secrecy in government. Whether one believes in UFOs or not, the story of Roswell resonates on various levels. In revisiting the narrative, it becomes clear that the intrigue surrounding Roswell is not only about physical evidence, but also about what it reveals about human nature. Our need for answers, our desire for connection with something larger than ourselves, and our willingness to question the official narratives given by those in power, is at the core of the continuing fascination with this mysterious event. As the decades roll on, Roswell stands as a testament to how a single incident can capture the imagination of many, encouraging those who wonder if we are alone in the universe, while simultaneously highlighting the complexities of truth, belief, and the unknown. The Roswell incident remains a significant chapter in stories of wonder and mystery, one that continues to inspire new generations to look to the skies with curiosity and anticipation. On August 6, 1945, an unprecedented event altered the course of history. The city of Hiroshima, Japan, faced devastation as an atomic bomb was dropped, unleashing unimaginable destruction. The immediate effects were catastrophic, with buildings obliterated and countless lives lost. However, the aftermath of the bomb was equally troubling, marked by a phenomenon known as, quote, black rain. In the days following the bombing, many survivors reported observing a rain unlike any they had experienced before. This rain, referred to as black rain, was a chilling consequence of the nuclear explosion. It began as a light drizzle, but soon developed into heavy downpours that were dark in color, often contaminated with soot and radioactive materials. People in the region were caught in a dilemma. They were already reeling from the destruction of their city and the overwhelming loss they faced, and now they had to contend with the dangers posed by this mysterious rain. The black rain carried with it particles of radioactive fallout from the explosion. As the bomb detonated, debris from the city, along with the fission products released during the nuclear reaction, rose into the atmosphere. This particulate matter eventually fell back to Earth, mixed in with rain that swept through the skies of Hiroshima. Residents exposed to the rain were unaware of the coming threat, believing it to be a simple weather phenomenon. However, the long-term implications of this exposure were dire. Survivors who came into contact with the black rain experienced a range of health effects that would haunt them for years to come. Many developed conditions such as skin diseases and various cancers, which were attributed to their exposure to radiation. Studies conducted on the effects of this rain indicated that individuals who were caught in the downpour faced a higher risk of developing leukemia and other serious illnesses. The gravity of the situation became apparent not just to those in Hiroshima, but also to the wider medical community as they sought to understand the full impact of nuclear fallout. For decades, the survivors of Hiroshima and the effects of black rain were subjects of much study and analysis. Researchers worked diligently to document the experiences of those affected and to trace the long-term health consequences. Interviews with survivors revealed harrowing accounts of pain and suffering, both physical and emotional. Many lived with the scars of their experiences, battling illnesses while grappling with the psychological effects of the bombing and its aftermath. The concept of black rain served as a reminder of the lingering impact of warfare, how destruction doesn't cease with the initial blast. It highlighted the need for awareness of the long-term effects of nuclear weapons. Over the years, the Hiroshima Black Rain Research Group was established, dedicated to investigating the so-called rain's health effects on individuals living in areas contaminated by radioactive fallout. Their work underscored the importance of paying attention to the realities of such catastrophic events. There are parallels to be drawn from history. Just as Hiroshima faced the consequences of nuclear fallout, other regions that have experienced warfare or natural disasters share stories of resilience amid adversity. People looking to rebuild their lives after such traumatic events often confront similar challenges, battling both physical and mental scars. The plight of those affected by black rain is but one example of the invisible violence that accompanies the aftermath of disasters. As awareness of the health effects associated with black rain grew, governments and organizations took steps to support survivors and their families. Long-term medical care became an essential component of addressing the needs of those affected. This included regular health screenings, financial assistance for medical treatments, and initiatives aimed at educating the public on the dangers of radiation exposure. These efforts revealed the interconnectedness of community resilience and public health, emphasizing the value of societal support in times of crisis. In recent years, discussions surrounding nuclear weapons have reignited, raising pertinent questions about how we remember the past and how it informs our future. The legacy of Hiroshima, particularly the impact of black rain, serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of peace and the dire need to prevent repetition of such tragedies. The stories of survivors remain a testament to human tenacity in the face of adversity, highlighting the strength found in remembrance and advocacy for those affected. In the end, the narrative of the black rain of Hiroshima transcends a single city or event. It weaves into the broader fabric of human history, carrying lessons of caution, resilience, and the enduring effects of conflict. By studying these past experiences and honoring the lives intertwined with them, society can strive toward a world where peace prevails, and humanity learns from its profound mistakes. Such reflections are essential, allowing us to recognize both the fragility of life and the resilience of the human spirit. For decades, Moore's Law has shaped our understanding of technology and innovation. First articulated by Gordon Moore, co-founder of Intel, in 1965, it proposed that the number of transistors on a microchip would double approximately every 2 years, leading to an exponential increase in computing power. This prediction has motivated engineers, scientists, and businesses to push the boundaries of what is possible in the realm of computing. However, as we move further into the 21st century, it is essential to explore the physical limits that challenge this once uncontested rule. Understanding Moore's Law, begins with a look at how transistors have evolved over time. In the early days of computing, transistors were bulky and manufactured using relatively rudimentary technology. Each advancement in materials and methods allowed engineers to pack more transistors into a given space. Today, transistors can be fabricated at nanoscale dimensions, with some measuring just a few nanometers across. This is approximately 10,000 times smaller than the width of a human hair. As technology progressed, the ability to shrink these components allowed for significant performance gains. However, as we approach the physical limits of how small we can make these transistors, the challenges become increasingly pronounced. One of the primary issues arises from quantum mechanics. At the nanoscale, electrons behave unpredictably, deviating from classical physics principles that once guided electronic design. This can lead to problems such as tunneling, where electrons jump through barriers that, at larger scales, they would not be able to cross. As transistors shrink, maintaining their functionality without succumbing to quantum effects becomes more complex. Another critical factor is the heat generated by densely packed transistors. As chips become more powerful, they also produce more heat. Managing this heat becomes a Herculean task. If chips get too hot, they can malfunction or even become damaged, leading engineers to develop methods such as advanced cooling systems. Yet, these solutions often add complexity and cost, creating a delicate balance between performance and practicality. Power consumption also plays a vital role in the ongoing viability of Moore's Law. As chips consume more power, they not only contribute to higher energy costs, but also create challenges for battery life in portable devices. Energy efficiency has become a significant concern as we strive to maintain the rapid pace of growth in computing power. Enhancements in chip design, low-power transistors, and systems on a chip are efforts made to address these challenges while pushing the limits of power efficiency. Moreover, the economic factors behind chip manufacturing also play a role. The cost of fabrication facilities, or fabs, has skyrocketed. The newest fabrication techniques require more sophisticated equipment and materials, pushing the expenses into the billions of dollars. This economic barrier can stifle new entrants into semiconductor manufacturing, resulting in a more concentrated industry where only large companies can afford to innovate. Alternatives to traditional silicon-based transistors are also emerging as potential ways to bypass some of these limitations. Researchers are exploring materials such as graphene and transition metal dichalcogenides, which may offer better performance at smaller scales. These materials can potentially maintain functionality while overcoming issues related to heat and quantum effects. However, widespread adoption of these materials for mainstream technology is still a work in progress and may take years to develop. In the face of these challenges, many experts agree that we may need to shift our thinking about performance. Instead of purely measuring progress by transistor count, we might focus more on other factors, such as architecture, software optimization, or specialized processing units. Technologies like quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, and hardware acceleration are gaining traction and may provide avenues for continued growth in computing capabilities. The concept of more than more reflects this shift in thinking. It recognizes that while increasing transistor density may reach its limits, there remain opportunities for improvement beyond mere numbers. This may include enhancements in system integration, the development of more specialized chips tailored to specific computational tasks, and innovative software that maximizes the potential of existing hardware. As we look to the future, it's essential to acknowledge that while the predictions of Moore's Law may be encountering limits, the spirit of innovation driving the tech industry remains alive and well. Breakthroughs in materials, science, engineering, and computing concepts continue to push boundaries and redefine what is possible. The challenges may be substantial, but history has shown that human creativity often finds solutions in the most unexpected ways. In summary, Moore's Law has served as a guiding principle for sorting through the rapid advancements in computing technology over the past few decades. As we confront the physical limits of traditional computing, we are reminded that innovation is not solely about increasing transistor counts, but involves a complex tapestry of engineering, economics, and new ideas. By embracing change and rethinking how we approach computing challenges, we may continue to thrive in an ever-evolving landscape of technology. The future is not free from obstacles, but it is also brimming with possibilities waiting to be explored. The Bermuda Triangle, often shrouded in mystery and intrigue, is a region in the North Atlantic Ocean that has captured the imagination of many. Stretching roughly between Miami, Bermuda, and San Juan, Puerto Rico, this area has become notorious for a series of unexplained disappearances of ships and aircraft over the decades. While many tales are steeped in legend, the reality behind these events is a fascinating mixture of human error, natural phenomena, and, of course, speculation. One of the most famous incidents associated with the Bermuda Triangle involves Flight 19. In December 1945, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida on a routine flight. As they ventured deeper into the triangle, their compasses began to malfunction. Captain Charles Taylor, the leader of the flight, reported confusion among the crew members regarding their position. Despite attempts to navigate back, the planes vanished without a trace. A rescue plane sent to search for them also disappeared, leaving behind only questions. Some believe that the geographical features of the Bermuda Triangle play a significant role in these disappearances. The region is characterized by deep underwater trenches and unpredictable weather patterns. For example, the Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current, flows through the triangle. It can rapidly change the location of debris from a downed aircraft or ship, making recovery efforts nearly impossible. Imagine you were sailing through these waters, and suddenly a storm breaks out. The winds howl, and waves swell high, tossing your vessel like a toy. This is the reality many sailors face in the Bermuda Triangle. In fact, some studies suggest that the area experiences an unusually high number of storms, capable of producing sudden and violent weather changes that can catch even the most seasoned mariners off guard. Another captivating aspect of the Bermuda Triangle is its history of shipwrecks. For centuries, ships sailing through these waters have met tragic fates. One notable example is the USS Cyclops, a Navy cargo ship that disappeared in 1918 with a crew of more than 300. The vessel left Barbados bound for Baltimore and was never seen again. This singular event became part of the broader tapestry of Bermuda Triangle lore, enhancing the aura of danger surrounding the region. Skeptics often argue that the disappearances can be attributed to human error, machinery failure, or natural disasters. After all, the ocean is vast and powerful, and accidents happen. In fact, there are more than a few documented instances where ships and planes have simply encountered mechanical issues or navigational errors, leading to tragic outcomes. Yet, even in the face of scientific explanations, the allure of the Bermuda Triangle remains. People are drawn to its enigma, and countless books, documentaries, and even movies have been produced to explore the mystery further. The stories vary from UFO sightings to suggestions of underwater cities, but the essence lies in the unknown. Each theory tackled and dissected enhances the intrigue surrounding this oceanic zone. Explorations of the Bermuda Triangle have also uncovered remarkable geological features hidden beneath the waves, such as underwater volcanoes and methane hydrates. These phenomena can potentially create explosions powerful enough to sink ships quickly. Imagine an explosion far below the surface, releasing gas bubbles that cause a ship to lose buoyancy and plunge underwater in mere moments. Such scientific discoveries continue to feed the flames of speculation while offering plausible explanations for some of the mysterious events. In recent years, advancements in technology have allowed for deeper exploration of the Bermuda Triangle. Researchers using sonar and underwater robots have conducted expeditions to map the ocean floor, uncovering wrecks and artifacts previously lost to time. Each discovery reveals a part of history, hinting at the lives and stories connected to these vessels. The findings have cemented the idea that many of these incidents may not be as mysterious as once thought, yet the excitement surrounding the area prevails. What is really captivating about the Bermuda Triangle is how it sparks imagination. The idea of a place where the laws of physics appear to bend, where ships and planes dissolve into thin air, is something that captures stories and dreams alike. Whether you believe in the supernatural, the unexplained, or simply enjoy a good story, the Bermuda Triangle provides rich material for thought and discussion. As you wander through the multitude of stories surrounding this enigmatic area, you may find your mind racing with the possibilities and pondering what truly lies beneath the waves. The Bermuda Triangle is not just a location. It is a symbol of the mysteries that still exist in our world, reminding us that there are still many secrets yet to be unveiled. With each tale of disappearance, the allure grows, fueling curiosity for generations to come. Each account adds another layer to the complex narrative that binds us to this fascinating ocean realm. In conclusion, the Bermuda Triangle stands as a testament to human fascination with the unknown. It draws us in with its tales of loss, survival, and discovery. Whether one chooses to view it through the lens of science or storytelling, there is no denying the triangle's powerful hold on the collective imagination. It's a place where history intertwines with mystery, offering endless possibilities for exploration and understanding.